Yep. Inside, I want to kill myself. We are on an 0-7 run over the last 2 days. After tonight was just complete bullshit. So that's how I'm going to start off this show. Horrible Sunday, 1-5. I don't even know what to tell you about that. I just don't want to do this anymore. I have never seen anything like this, man. With the slump continuing, 2 straight losses, not a good day at all. 0-4. I just have not had a good season, man. What can this slump that I'm on? The slump continues. I've reached a new peak, actually. I'm going to burn my Bruins hat, man. I don't know what is going on with the Bruins. March 8th, is that what it is? I don't even know. It's March 9th, I think. Who even knows, man? I don't know what day it is anymore. I don't even know what day it is anymore, man. Back with you after the worst day that I could possibly have. Back with you, as I always am. Until I die, at least. 0-2 yesterday, and yesterday did not go well for me. 0-5. The worst month that I've ever had in my 18 years doing this. I don't know what to even tell you about this anymore. Broke the slump yesterday as the slump discontinues. The slump continues. Somebody fucking kill me, please. I don't even know what I should do at this point other than potentially end it all. What's up, everybody? It's Toad back with you. Toadstool Sports. It's Saturday. This is the college basketball edition. No other sports to really talk about today. So it's going to be college basketball. I'm going to give out 4 plays. I think I'm being pretty selective here. Hopefully these are good. A couple of them I think are quite strong. The numbers are holding pretty steady on these games. So I think the numbers are not going to really get away from us on these games. We're going to get into it, man. 1-0 yesterday with UNLV. They were getting smacked in that game. They were down 23, I think, in the game, and we only needed them to cover the 10.5 because that's where the line was. As I did the show, I think that's what I gave it out at. Stayed pretty much right at that number. Not only did they come back, but they got right back into that game, tied the game late. The game went into overtime, and they wound up winning the game in overtime. Outright win for UNLV, baby. That was big. I watched the end of it. I watched the end of regulation and most of overtime. So that was, yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah, I don't know. UNLV has that one guy, that small guard they have who was hitting those shots. That guy's good. I forget what his name. He had some long name, like some double last name. I forget what his name is. He was good, though. I don't know the names of these players too well, man, but and the goggles guy for Boise, Meadows or whatever, he wasn't wearing his goggles, man. What's up with that? Come on, man. Anyway, let's get into it, man. I did talk about briefly, I know the NBA All-Star stuff is going on. We got the three-point contest. I kind of recommended Lillard in that one just because he's been there. He's done it before. He's got the second best odds to get it, I think. So you can go back and see how I analyzed it yesterday. The dunk contest, I basically don't have anything for it anyway. But I was talking about the three-point contest, for Lillard. The actual all-star stuff I have nothing on. All right, let's get into college basketball, man. Let's take no more time here. Let's jump into it and let's go. ESPN noon, number 20 Clemson at number 4 Duke. Duke is a double-digit favorite in this game. Duke may show up for this game because, as I pointed out last game when we faded Duke on the show, and they didn't cover. They played Pittsburgh. They didn't cover. It was a win for Duke, but I pointed out part of that handicap was Duke. Well, they were coming off the big game against North Carolina. They did lose as a favorite, but I thought Duke was going to be looking ahead to this game because Clemson was, I believe, the only team in the conference to beat Duke last year, with Duke not avenging that loss, I'm pretty sure. Duke played them once at Clemson. They lost. So this is actually a potential legit revenge spot for Duke just because of that, because they probably remember that. When you're a team like Duke and you have very, very few losses, you remember who beat you. So I'm going to have to lean to Duke in this one. Duke is up from an 11.5-point favorite to a 13-point favorite. I think you're probably getting to a point where there's not really a lot of line value there. 54% of the cash on Duke, 50-50 on the tickets. Seems like the public is kind of thinking that line's a little big as well. I think it probably is a little bit too big. Uh, but these two teams both also play slow up, so I should probably bring up Mr. Palm, KenPom here. Duke is definitely the better team, as we all know this. Both teams are in the rankings right now, but KenPom has Clemson actually outside of the rankings. They're very legitimate defense, but not that good on offense. Duke is good on both sides of the ball, legitimately. Both teams are going to try to slow the game down, though. So a slow-paced game perhaps is going to happen here. Clemson, I believe, is much better on defense, is what I just said, than offense. So you have two legit defenses here. I think an under makes sense in this game, too. The total did drop, though, from 133. Well, only from 133.5 to 133. So I think there might still be some room to play the under in this game. I think it will be a low-scoring game. Clemson is coming off a loss to Virginia Tech as a favorite, so I think you're going to get focus out of Clemson here. You're going to get focus out of both teams, in my opinion. So Clemson did lose a 4-game win streak. Sometimes that'll hang you over, but that was a pretty ugly loss at home as a favorite to Virginia Tech, a decent-sized favorite. Clemson was in that game, so I expect them. I think they were already looking ahead to this game. I expect them to show up, but I expect Duke to show up as well after kind of a lackluster performance against Pitt in the last game. I'll just bring it up for solidarity, whatever the word is. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. ESPN 2 at noon, TCU at Oklahoma State. This is not one of my plays, but you kind of know what I would say about this, or what I'm about to say about this. TCU is coming off a huge win. They just beat Iowa State at home, man. They took down one of the top 5 teams in the country. Huge win for TCU. They were, I think, 7-point underdogs in that game. It seemed like maybe they should be bigger underdogs than that because TCU has not had a good season. The bracketologies have them, like, sort of close to being a bubble team, and that win over Iowa State will help, although I still have them outside of the tournament in mind. I have them not even that close, really. They're going to have to do more than beating Iowa State, but this could be a letdown spot now, man, because they beat Iowa State. Huge win. They got UCF on deck, and UCF is a tournament team, so they might actually be looking ahead to that game as well. For Oklahoma State, now, they did already beat Oklahoma State once. TCU beat Oklahoma State at home by 3. TCU were 8.5-point favorites in that game, though, so I do talk about that, how sometimes when a team in the first matchup, if they were at home and they were a big favorite and they almost got caught, a lot of times they will show up in the next game for that reason. And they might show up anyway, again, because Oklahoma State is a tournament bubble team as well, so I think both teams kind of want this game. It's just, I mean, that's why I have hesitations about it, because TCU is in a major letdown spot, but that is the only real part of the handicap here. I would lean Oklahoma State for those reasons, but there are a lot of, like, reservations that I have about it. I think TCU could, potentially still wind up focused for multiple reasons on this game, like I just described. The spot is still better for Oklahoma State, though, in my opinion. They just went out to Arizona, lost both games out there. They're back home now. They do have Kansas on deck, but I don't see Oklahoma State overlooking this. They got to get some wins here for their tournament resume. They did lose the game already to TCU on the road, even though they played them pretty close. So, yeah, I like Oklahoma State in this one. I apologize. I've had, like, no sleep. I'm, like, out of it, man. I was handicapping late last night, and now I'm doing the show on almost no sleep. So I apologize. Oklahoma State's up from a pick 'em to a 1.5-point favorite, 82% of the tickets, 73% of the cash. So they're looking public, which that is the other thing that worries me about this, is that Oklahoma State could be a public side. Like, if you look at the number here, look at the team's records, Oklahoma State has the better overall record, at least. So the public might be tempted to actually play them in a pick-the-winner scenario. So that wouldn't, like, keep me off the game if I thought it was a strong enough situation. I don't, but I will lean to Oklahoma State just because it is a major letdown spot for TCU. CW at noon, Georgia Tech is at Notre Dame in the ACC. Two teams that are going nowhere. Georgia Tech's lost 6 games in a row. They just lost at home to Wake. They got Virginia on deck, but I think if you're in this slide like Georgia Tech is, I just don't think you're going to really overlook anybody. So I think they'll show up, but I think Notre Dame might show up as well, just to try to get a win. But Notre Dame is coming off a tougher game. They went to SMU. They lost by 8. Not a bad performance from Notre Dame in this one. They were double-digit underdogs, so they covered in this game. They were fairly close towards the end of this game as well, so Notre Dame did play a tougher game here. So I think I would have to lean to Georgia Tech just for that reason. Notre Dame's up from a 7-point favorite to a 7.5-point favorite, but I would take the points probably in that one if I was going to do anything with it, but not a strong opinion at all. California at Boston College on the ACC network at noon. Cal playing in a weird venue, of course, unfamiliar venue to them. But Cal is already out in the Eastern time zone now because they just played at Syracuse. But I think that was the bigger game of the two. I mean, if you're going to play Syracuse, BC, neither of those games are that big, but Syracuse is the bigger of the two games. Cal was an underdog against Syracuse, and they took them to overtime. I think they're only actually, I think they might have been about a 5-point underdog in that game. Syracuse wound up covering the game, even though it went to overtime, or maybe, double overtime, actually. So Cal is coming off a double overtime game and now having to go to BC. I think it doesn't make it that easy for them, man. When they come back home, they got to face Stanford. Cal did already win at Stanford, but that is still a rivalry game when they come back home, although they do get the week off before they play that game. But Cal, they might overlook BC, even though Cal is on a slide here where they're probably going to try to win a game, but so will BC. They're staying at home, BC is at the very least. They're coming off a loss to Stanford. Stanford was a small favorite in that one. So BC, I mean, they're staying at home for a third straight game at least. To me, I think the spot does set up a little bit better for BC. I would probably look towards taking the points with them here, but very, very weak opinion for me on that one. Cal's a 3-point favorite. 90% of tickets, 99% of the cash on Cal. That number is obviously not accurate, but that's the way I would lean in that one. Navy at Colgate in the battle for the Patriot League. Man, these teams actually have not played yet this season, and they're the top two teams in the Patriot League. CBS Sports has this game at noon. Colgate, I think, might have more motivation coming into this one because if they lose this game, they're not going to be able to compete for the regular season championship in the Patriot League anymore. They have to win this game for that to be the case. If Navy loses, they'll still be in the driver's seat for it. So there is a little bit of extra motivation on the Colgate side, I think. And I think Navy might not be quite as good as their record looks. Very, very pretty record from Navy. But they're coming off an easy win over Bucknell. I mean, they're not going to overlook Colgate, but it is the third road game in 4 games for them. Second straight road game. Colgate, the setup is a little bit better for them because they're staying at home. They're coming back home. They just went to Holy Cross, and they actually didn't do well. I think Colgate was looking ahead to this game. They only got by Holy Cross by 4. I think they were about 8.5-point favorites in that one at Holy Cross. Holy Cross is a bad team, and I talk about when a big favorite barely escapes like that. Sometimes it's because they were looking ahead, but either way, it usually means they're going to show up with focus in the next game. So I'm going to look towards Colgate in this one if I was going to play the game. It also looks too easy to play Navy with basically just to pick the winner number here with their much, much prettier looking record than what Colgate has. But the odds makers are telling you Navy's not that much better than Colgate. I think KenPom kind of bears that out too by having Navy a pretty lucky team, 45th in luck, so they've overperformed a bit. Now, they are the better defense, though, so that's one worry. With a pick-the-winner type of situation like this, I do like the better defense a lot of the time. More often than not, I like the better defense, and Navy is the better defense. Colgate is actually lucky as well. It's 60th in luck. So both teams are lucky. I'm going to stay away from it, but I'll slightly lean to Colgate in the game. Navy has actually moved up from a pick-em to a 1.5-point favorite. So you're getting Colgate as an underdog there. It's not a strong opinion for me at all, though. ESPNU at noon has Samford at East Tennessee State in the SoCon. This is a second meeting. Samford actually gave East Tennessee a run for their money when they played at Samford. East Tennessee only won by 1. So it is a road revenge game for Samford technically because they lost the home game. But a lot of times if one of the teams was significantly better than the other, like East Tennessee is this year, and they almost lost the game, then sometimes that team will take that team seriously the next time. So in this case, East Tennessee, they're only 3.5-point favorites in that game, though. But Samford did give them a run for their money, so it's possible East Tennessee will actually take them seriously this time because they only beat them by 1. Samford's on a 4-game win streak. They're coming off 2 nice wins against Mercer and Wofford. So now Samford's basically playing the top 3 teams in the conference in 3 straight games. That's not easy to do, man. So I actually do think the setup is a little bit better for East Tennessee here. East Tennessee just beat Chattanooga. Now they do have Furman on deck. Furman is probably the 4th best team in this conference this year. I don't know that East Tennessee is necessarily going to be looking ahead to that game, though. They have not played, they did play Furman once. They actually only beat them by 4. And because Furman is running decent in the standings right now at 4th, maybe East Tennessee would have to look ahead to that. But I think the spot sets up a little bit better for East Tennessee in this one, in my opinion. So I would probably lean towards them. They're up from a 5-point favorite to a 6-point favorite. So it looks like there was some line movement on East Tennessee. I would not disagree with it, but it's not a strong opinion from me. UCLA at number 2, Michigan at 12:45 Eastern on CBS. Very strange start time for this one. UCLA coming in from the Pacific Coast. Of course, UCLA, it's going to be an unfamiliar venue for them, man. So that's not great for UCLA. Having these Pacific Coast teams, I don't know, having an early start time. I think, it's not as bad as an East Coast team going out west to play a late game. It's late on their biological clock, but it's still not exactly the best spot for UCLA. Early start time, unfamiliar venue. They're coming off just getting by Washington. UCLA didn't cover in that game. They won by 4 as 4.5-point favorites. Maybe they were already looking ahead to Michigan. But I think because Michigan's been so good this year, I think you pretty much know you're not going to get line value, usually laying points with Michigan. Now, Michigan did just have a scare in their last game against Northwestern. They went into Northwestern. Northwestern was actually winning that game by double digits in the second half, I'm pretty sure. Believe it or not, even though Michigan wound up winning by 12. I think there was like a 24-point swing within the second half in that game, which is crazy. That game was a lot closer than the final score down the stretch, man. Like Northwestern was still within, I think, 2 possessions with 4 minutes to go in that game or something like that. So Michigan did suffer a scare, which does mean maybe they will show up in this game. Because when a big favorite has a scare like that, they a lot of times will show up better in the next game. Although Michigan has Purdue and then Duke on deck. So they play a huge Big Ten matchup, and then they have Duke after that, which is another huge game and a weird out-of-conference game. There's some random out-of-conference games, man. I think there are a couple today, too. So you could make the argument Michigan's going to be looking ahead to. I'm not going to do anything with this game. The money is coming in on UCLA for what it's worth. Michigan's down from 16.5 to 16. Huge favorite, but you could make the argument maybe UCLA is going to be able to muddy this game up a little bit and play it slow. I mean, that's what UCLA does. They play a slow style of game, and usually they focus on defense. Both defenses, I think, are... I don't want to say both defenses are necessarily legit, but UCLA, they're a balanced team this year. They're good. They're fine on both sides of the ball, but they do still play really slow. Michigan is obviously legit on both sides of the ball. Michigan is actually the number 1 defense now, according to KenPom. It's been back and forth between them and a couple other teams. So, you could maybe make a case for an under in this one. The total's pretty high, higher than you would maybe expect, but that's because Michigan plays fast. UCLA, or the total's at 152.5. Now, sometimes the better team will dictate the tempo. Maybe Michigan will be able to dictate the tempo and run fast, but I don't think they want to overexert themselves either because they have that huge Purdue game on deck. So it's a pretty tough call as far as what's going to happen in this game. 56% of the tickets are on Michigan, 68% of the cash on UCLA. I apologize, I'm not at my best this morning, man, but I'm going to give up my plays anyway. I would probably agree with that and lean towards UCLA plus the points, but no strong opinion for me on that. The next game is a strong opinion. Let's go. You probably know what it's going to be. Best bet number 1, we're going to lay the 6.5 with Iowa State. I was worried the line was going to get out of control because it had moved to 7. It looked like it was moving through the 7, but there are 6.5s out there at some of the main books. If you lay 7, I think that's all right. I probably wouldn't want to lay 7.5 on this. just because you want to make sure you still get at least enough line value on this, and this line is high. This is number 5 Iowa State hosting number 9 Kansas. Now, the odds makers are telling you Iowa State's still the better team, but they're probably skewing the number a little bit because they know that the spot is really bad for Kansas, but I'm not sure that they skewed the number enough, man, to be honest. This game screams Iowa State to me for so many reasons. This game's on ABC at 1 p.m. Eastern. First of all, we know that Kansas is in a major letdown spot. They just beat Arizona. They beat the number 1 ranked team in the country. I thought Kansas would win that game, and even though Kansas was without their best player, who is projected to be one of the top NBA draft picks, Peterson, I think is his name, Kansas did that without him. So if he comes back, I still like this play because it's like Kansas will be thinking, well, if we could beat Arizona without him, we're going to be just fine with him, right? But that's the type of win that can really, really put you in a letdown spot, man. So, that's where you start the handicap. This is a major letdown spot. And it was even bigger because Kansas had not knocked off a number 1 ranked team since like the 1950s, I think, at home. I think that means they'd never done it at Allen Fieldhouse. That was a huge win for Kansas, man. The crowd was going crazy. There was no court storming, but the crowd was going insane. Now they got to go to Ames, Iowa. It's a very, very difficult venue to play in. And Kansas, by the way, they played Iowa State already earlier this year, and they beat them by 21 at Kansas. So this is also a revenge spot for Iowa State. Iowa State is not going to overlook Kansas. We know this. And we know that for numerous reasons, which I'll talk about in a minute. But Kansas, there is the potential they won't take Iowa State as seriously as they should because they beat them handily. But if you look at what happened in this game, this is a major outlier of a game. Iowa State actually had more field goal attempts in the game. They had more possessions, but they shot 37% from the field. Kansas shot 51% and shot 50 from three-point range. So, I mean, there's got to be some expected regression there. Iowa State's not going to shoot that poorly from the field again. Unlikely that Kansas is going to be able to hit 50% three-pointers again. And this game was very, very close statistically besides those major shooting outliers. The game was much, much closer than it should have been. The game was much, much closer than it looked on the scoreboard, And Iowa State, by the way, they were actually a road favorite in that game. They were a 3.5-point road favorite. So this line might actually, you could make the argument this line's a little bit short, although I guess now we know Kansas is better than we thought they were then. But if that line was 3.5 and that would mean this line should probably be closer to like 9. I think it is possible that even though I said I wouldn't want to play this like above 7, I think maybe you could make the argument there is still a little bit of line value left there, but 7 kind of the key number in college basketball because teams stop intentionally fouling at the 3-possession threshold. But either way, it's a situation where you had the road favorite lost the first matchup outright. So that is a situation where you do want to lay the points more often than not with that team in the second matchup. So we have that going for us too. But it gets even better because Iowa State had a horrible game last week. I told you, they went to TCU. They lost the game at TCU. Now, they did lose a 5-game win streak. Sometimes I talk about when a team loses a win streak, they'll be hung over into the next game. There is no way that Iowa State's going to overlook Kansas, man, I don't think. And the last time Iowa State was at home, they only beat Baylor by 3, which was not the greatest result either. Although Iowa State, I think, kind of just packed that game in early. They were winning that game more handily than that, so they won that game more easily than it does look like they did. But they still got a little bit of a scare at the end of it. So this game has Iowa State written all over it to me, man. We're doing it. We're laying the points. Iowa State. The number looks like it has moved up from 5.5 to 7 with juice, but I looked right before I started the show. There were 6.5s at multiple books, the big books, and 7s were pretty abundant as well. Kansas looks like they're going to be a public side because everybody just saw them knock off the number 1 team, and they already blew out Iowa State, so it looks really, really easy to take a ton of points with Kansas. 55% of tickets are on Kansas, 57% of the cash on Iowa State, so looks like a pros versus Joes type of scenario setting up here where the public are going to be on Kansas. So Kansas is setting up to maybe be a public underdog in this one. So I like it even more because I like taking those anti-public favorites because you know you're getting the better team and fading the public simultaneously. KenPom has Iowa State seventh best in the country, fifth best offense. He's got Kansas at 11th. That's not bad either. Fifth best defense, for Iowa State. Ninth defensively for Kansas. But where Iowa State has a big edge is offense. They're a top 20 offense. Kansas is outside the top 40, according to KenPom. So that's the major difference. Iowa State is actually the slightly better defense too, but they're the considerably better offense. Both teams play kind of a mid-tempo, if you want to call it that, maybe slightly on the slower side. And Kansas is also the luckier team, according to KenPom's luck index here. Top 100 in luck. Iowa State is outside the top 100. So KenPom's numbers have some things going for them for Iowa State there as well. So everything lines up pretty nicely in that one, man. Iowa State is the first play. All right. Big Ten Network, 1 p.m. Northwestern at number 7, Nebraska. I think Nebraska is a bit overrated. KenPom has them at 14th. And a somewhat lucky team. I keep pointing that out. He's got Northwestern as a very, very unlucky team. Now, the problem with Northwestern is the spot, obviously, because, as I said, Northwestern, they just played Michigan, and Northwestern had a huge lead in the second half in that game. They were winning by double digits, and they wound up losing the game. That's a brutal loss for Northwestern, man. They had Michigan almost on the ropes there, and then Michigan came all the way back and won by double digits. But again, the game was a lot closer than that final look, so I don't know how Northwestern is going to respond off of that. Now, there are some things to like about Northwestern here that, as I told you, KenPom has them as a very underrated team. They're a lot better than their record would suggest that they are. They already lost at home by 19 to Nebraska, so Nebraska might not take Northwestern seriously. And Nebraska themselves are coming off a huge game as well. Nebraska just lost to Purdue at home in a crazy game that went to overtime. Wild game. Nebraska had a huge comeback in that game. They were losing, I think, by 20, maybe even more. Came back and could have won the game, sent it into overtime and wound up losing. So Nebraska is in a pretty brutal spot here coming off of that as well, man. So this game, both teams are in pretty bad spots, although I think I would probably have to lean towards taking the points with Northwestern if I was going to play it, just because I think that's where the line value probably exists. Nebraska down from 14 to 13, so there has been some movement against them, 92% of the tickets and 83% of the cash on Nebraska. So they are a very public team with less of the money on them. So, yeah, I won't disagree with Northwestern there, but I don't want it. Number 17, St. John's at Providence at 1 p.m. on TNT and True TV. Now, first look at this. The public might wind up being on St. John's here. They're down from 7.5 to 7. They got 71% of the tickets are on St. John's, only 54% of the cash. But I actually think the public might be right in this game. Now, St. John's, they're coming off a win over Xavier, and it was not a good performance. It was the Pitino battle, of course, again there. Son versus father.
Yeah, inside, I want to kill myself.
Rick Pitino not saying that right now because he has swept the season series against his son, Richard. But St. John's didn't do well in either game against Xavier, man. Xavier took them to the limit both times. And I believe they took them into overtime in maybe both games. Yeah, but they definitely did in this most recent game. So St. John's had a scare as a big favorite. And you know I talk about when a team has a scare as a big favorite, a lot of times they will show up with a lot more effort in the next game. St. John's were 16.5-point favorites in that game. And remember, it was a horrible spot for them because they were coming off beating Connecticut. Huge win for St. John's there. And they had this Providence game on deck, which I said was part of the sandwich spot there. I'll explain that in a minute, but I was telling you that St. John's is going to show up for Providence. Well, and I'll mention it right now, I guess. The reason for that is St. John's has one conference loss on the season. Guess who that loss was to? It was to Providence at St. John's or at Madison Square Garden or whatever. So St. John's only conference loss to this point was a bad loss at home as huge favorites to Providence. So I think they were looking ahead to this game. I actually think they have this game circled, man. St. John's has Marquette next. They already beat Marquette in embarrassing fashion. They killed Marquette. So I don't think they're going to be looking ahead to Marquette. I think St. John's wants this game. So I do not agree with the market read in this one. I would lay it with St. John's if I was going to play this one. Multiple things going for it. The big favorite that almost lost in the prior game. And it's a revenge spot. As you know, like I said, it's a situation where a team was a huge favorite at home and lost, and now they get the chance to avenge that loss, and it's their only loss in conference play. And I talk about that too. When a team has one loss in conference play, they will show up. Usually, unless there's something else going on with the situation, more often than not, they're going to show up and play and try to get that revenge in that game. Providence also is terrible defensively, so that's kind of the major issue there. Like, Providence could score, but their defense is god-awful. Providence is coming off a tough game at Seton Hall. They played pretty close at Seton Hall. I think they're probably 4.5 point dogs in that one, I would guess. Let me see. Yeah, 4.5. So Providence is coming off a bigger effort game than St. John's is. Because, again, St. John's almost lost as a big favorite. Providence, is coming off a big performance against Seton Hall and falling short. So, yeah, I would lay the points with St. John's in that one if I was going to play it. Charles, what's up? Thanks for hanging out. All right. SEC Network, 1 p.m. Texas A&M at number 19 at Vanderbilt. Texas A&M has started falling down in the SEC standings, like I said they would. They're playing pretty well under Bucky McMillan, I think first-year head coach with Texas A&M. But the wheels are kind of coming off this Texas A&M team, which I thought they would. I don't think they're going to miss the tournament or anything, but they're falling off a bit. But maybe this is a spot to maybe start looking towards Texas A&M, because Texas A&M, they just lost at home to Missouri. And A&M was coming off losing a win streak to Alabama, and then in the next game they'd gotten blasted by Florida. But they might have been looking ahead to Vandy, man. So I don't know. I think Texas A&M maybe kind of got caught, but they lost as like a 7.5 point favorite at home to Missouri. So I think you will get a better effort out of Texas A&M this time. Going to play Vandy. Vandy's a pretty good team, though. Ranked 19th. KenPom actually has them 13th. And has them pretty balanced. They're pretty good on both offense and defense. Vandy's coming off a bigger game, though. They're actually an underdog at Auburn and pulled off the upset. But I told you I did like Vandy in that game. I wasn't buying the unranked favorite aspect of that game. I liked the spot better for Vandy because Vandy was coming off an ugly loss as a 7.5 point favorite, I think, to Oklahoma in the prior game. Well, now that's Texas A&M that's coming off the ugly loss as a 7.5 point favorite. So, yeah, I would probably lean to Texas A&M in this one, man. Vandy coming off the nice upset win. They only have Missouri on deck, which I don't think is a big deal, but I think we might actually be getting A&M with some line value here now. Vandy's a 6.5 point favorite. They might hit 7. They've gone up from 5.5. We got 60% of the tickets and 89% of the cash on Texas A&M. Texas A&M, they've gone from being a decent-sized favorite in one game to being an underdog, a decent underdog in the next. So a lot of times I will like to look for that shift, right? Like when a team's a big dog one week, and now they're a big favorite one week, and now they're a big dog the next week. So they went from being basically like a public favorite one week, and they didn't get the job done at all, to now being possibly sort of an anti-public underdog the next week. It's an angle that I like in every sport, but I talk about it more in like NFL because it's easier to see like week to week when you have a big shift like that, or the inverse when one team goes from being a big underdog to them being a big favorite. I like to look to fade that team, but in this case, I would look to be on Texas A&M. If I was going to play that game, I'd probably take the points there. All right. Let's keep going, man. Long Island at New Haven. The thing about this game is Long Island is coming off not playing that well at Wagner. They won by 10, but this game, Long Island is the best team in the Northeast Conference, which isn't saying much, but Long Island was really, really bad shooting in this game. They had 1 3-pointer in the game. They shot 8% from three-point range. They came close to losing this game, man. I know they won by 10, but Wagner was really giving them some problems, man. It was a 3-point game with a couple minutes to go. So Long Island is coming off of an escape, and they're playing New Haven here. And the last time they played New Haven at home, Long Island didn't do that well in this game either. They were 9.5-point favorites, and they only won by 5. And New Haven gave them a little bit of a scare multiple times in the second half in that game. So Long Island might actually take them seriously this time. So I would probably be leaning towards Long Island in this one. New Haven is coming off a pretty tough game against Central Connecticut. Central Connecticut is probably the second best team in this conference. They were the best team in this conference last year. New Haven only lost them by 5. I assume New Haven was a dog in this one. Yeah, they were 3.5-point underdogs. They actually didn't cover, but it was a tougher performance from New Haven in that one, so I would probably be leaning towards Long Island in this one. They're a 7-point road favorite, though, with a low total of 128.5, so I'm not really that keen on laying these road favorites with very small, with very low totals like that, you know, in these ugly games. So, but if I had to lean in that one, that's the way I would lean. I just thought there was maybe a little bit of an angle there in that one. Chicago State at Lemoyne. I thought that maybe I had some sort of angle in this one. Chicago State's on a nice roll, 3 wins in a row, even though they're a really bad team. I don't know how they've done this, to be honest. They're playing Lemoyne. Lemoyne's been one of the better teams in the conference this year. Lemoyne beat Chicago State at Chicago State by 15 already, so Lemoyne might not take them seriously. Lemoyne just beat Mercyhurst, who is one of the better teams in the conference, although I think Lemoyne probably didn't cover this one. They're only 2.5-point favorites, though, so it's still a pretty big win for them, getting by Mercyhurst. And they got Central Connecticut on deck. And Central Connecticut beat Lemoyne at Lemoyne by 10 points, so I think they might be looking ahead to Central Connecticut for those reasons. So I think Chicago State might still be the way to look to continue their momentum. They're getting 7 points here, down from 7.5. So you wouldn't need them to win the game this time. They just need to cover as a big dog. That's the way I would look in that one. As ugly as that is. Total low in the 140s. But yeah, Chicago State would be my opinion in that one. Plus the points. Of course, Lemoyne looking ahead to Central Connecticut also, because Central Connecticut's kind of one of the better teams in the conference. So, all right. Furman at VMI in the SoCon. I'm going to skip some of these games now because I got to get through all these games. There are way too many games. It's a Saturday. I'm already dying here. I'm going to have to take a break at some point. Furman is coming off 3 big games. Well, 2 big games. They had a huge game against East Tennessee, fell just short. Then I faded them, if you remember. On Super Bowl Sunday, I gave out UNC Greensboro against them. They got the outright win over them. Then Furman could have had a bounce back after that, and they did not. They went to Mercer. It was a tough game, and they lost by 5 at Mercer. So now they're coming off all that, and they have East Tennessee on deck. So I would only be able to look towards VMI here, man. Furman has this game sandwiched in between probably 2 of the other top 3 teams in the conference, which I think is accurate, Mercer and East Tennessee State. So, yeah, Furman coming off the big game against Mercer. East Tennessee State in revenge on deck. And then Wofford actually right after that. Wofford in second place in the conference. So this is like clearly the down spot in the schedule for Furman. And they already beat VMI by 21 at Furman. So I don't think they're going to take VMI seriously at all. VMI's been bad, though. We tried to go with them against UNC Greensboro. They couldn't cover that, but if I was going to play the game, I would have to play VMI in this one, man. They are back at home in this one at the very least, and they're going to be a pretty decent-sized dog at home here, coming off another ugly loss. So it would be VMI for me if I was going to play it. Furman down from 13.5 to 13. You're getting points at home, getting double-digit points at home in this one with VMI at the very least, and total is in the 140s, so it's not high. So, yeah, I would lean to VMI in that one, like I said. All right. I'm checking my list here because I do have my other leans that I was going to talk about while I go through all this. All right. Pitt at North Carolina at 2 p.m. on ESPN. Number 11, North Carolina. Pitt covered against Duke, but they still lost by double digits, so Pitt might show up in this game too. It might be a worse spot for North Carolina. Now, North Carolina, they just lost a 5-game win streak with that loss to Miami. I gave out Miami as a winner. North Carolina did lose Wilson here to injury, as you can see here. So, pretty big loss for he broke his hand, so pretty big loss for North Carolina there. But it does put them in an injured player spot. So, you know me, like, I kind of will lean towards teams that lost like a star player sometimes because they'll play harder a lot of times knowing that they have to with that guy gone. And sometimes you get a little bit of line value. However, I don't think you're going to get much line value with North Carolina in a game like this. I think the injured player theory also doesn't work as well in college basketball. It works better with like quarterbacks in the NFL, and it works better with star players in the NBA for the most part. Now, North Carolina could still be in a hangover spot here, man, because they're coming off those 2 big games against Duke and then Miami. It was still a big game for North Carolina against Miami last time, and Miami probably, well, not probably, but Miami, as of now, is going to be a tournament team. And North Carolina has a big game on deck against one of their rivals, NC State. So this, you could definitely make the argument this is still a sandwich spot for North Carolina. I think that might overshadow the any injured player spot here, because, again, I don't think you're going to really get much line value when it's college basketball with North Carolina. North Carolina is still an overrated team. I would take the points with Pitt if I was going to play this. North Carolina down from 12 to 11 here, so the money seems to be agreeing with that. 91% of the tickets are very public still, and only 82% of the cash. North Carolina is nowhere close to the 11th best team in the country, man. That's just the way that it is. KenPom has them outside the top 30, I think. Or no, he has them 28th now, but still. Yeah, I would go against North Carolina if I was going to play that one. All right. What else do we want to talk about here? ACC Network at 2 p.m., Florida State at Virginia Tech. Not the greatest ACC game, although Florida State might not be quite as bad as their record looks. They've been playing competitively, but the problem is they just did that at home against Virginia. Florida State had Virginia on the ropes, man. They almost pulled off the upset against a ranked Virginia team. That would have been a huge win for Florida State. And they fell just short, losing by 3 and lost a 3-game win streak in the process. So I think you could make the argument this is a hangover spot now for Florida State, coming off that huge performance. Yeah, Virginia Tech has a good record, so maybe you'll still show up for that game. But Florida State, team that's going nowhere like Florida State, that was a huge game for them against Virginia, man. But for Virginia Tech, they're coming off a big road upset against Clemson. So they're coming off a huge win as well. And they have Miami on deck, who is at least a probably, again, yeah, I mean, I guess I'll say probably. Probably they'll be a tournament team. So Virginia Tech is kind of in a sandwich spot here. So what do we do with this game besides leave it alone? I mean, it's one of those games where I say over. Might make sense in the game if both teams are kind of in bad spots and they might not be totally focused. It can show up on the defensive end, but the total's already gone up from 150.5 to 157. So there's no value left in that total, man. Virginia Tech's gone up from 5 to 6.5. I can see the argument for it because Florida State is coming off almost pulling off a huge upset. You know, I guess I wouldn't disagree with fading Florida State there and with laying the points with Virginia Tech, but you know I can't do it because I think Virginia Tech is in a sandwich spot of their own there, so that is definitely a stay away. And you know me with my not doing totals. The CW at 2, we have SMU at Syracuse. Not the most interesting game. SMU is coming off beating Notre Dame and not doing that well in doing so. So maybe they will show with focus, but the problem is SMU having to go up from Dallas up to Syracuse, New York, and with Louisville on deck. I don't know if SMU is really going to show up for this game, man. Even though SMU didn't do that well against Notre Dame in their previous game. Don't know if the spot's that great for them. Syracuse is coming off an overtime game, though, but they are staying at home. They beat Cal. It was a decent win for Syracuse, though. Syracuse did have the worst record, even though they were actually the favorite in the game. So they did. You could see it going two ways. Like, a lot of times a favorite, if they don't do that well and they get taken into overtime, they'll show up focused in the next game. But maybe they don't know they were that heavily favored. or they didn't feel like they were because Cal has the better record and whatever. And it was a tough game still. It went into overtime. Syracuse also has Duke and North Carolina in their next 2 games. Duke on Monday. So not really a great setup for Syracuse necessarily here. The money has come in on SMU up from 2 to 2.5. I'll agree with SMU in this one. I think the fact that SMU just kind of barely escaped against Notre Dame, I think if you put more weight into what just happened, because that is what affects you more physically, I guess I'll lean towards SMU, but no play for me in this one. 75% of tickets, 100% of the cash in SMU. Obviously, that is not accurate. CBS Sports, 2 p.m., North Dakota State at North Dakota. They get a TV billing. I mean, it's a decent game. I mean, in the Summit League, we got first place versus third place in the Summit going on here, and it's a rivalry. These teams play again at the very end of the season, so they haven't played yet this season. North Dakota State's coming off an easy win over Omaha, so I think both teams will show up for this game. North Dakota is coming off bouncing back and beating South Dakota after North Dakota lost to Denver. Both teams are going to show up for this one, man. I think North Dakota kind of considers themselves to be the little brother here because North Dakota State is almost always one of the better teams in the Summit League. North Dakota State is up from 5 to 5.5, though. So some of the money is coming on North Dakota State. I think you might have to pay attention to, like, who do these teams play next. North Dakota State does play South Dakota State next. They already beat South Dakota State once, though. South Dakota State is way down this year, so maybe they'll show up for this one. The money has come in a little bit, it looks like, on North Dakota State. Total's low, 149, fairly low. Really low for a Summit League game because this is a conference that's known for offense. I kind of lean more towards taking the points in that one, though. With North Dakota, I think just putting more weight into a game like that, being the little brother essentially there. So that's the way I would probably lean, but I don't have a strong opinion on that in any way. All right. What else do we have here? A lot of these games I just don't care about that much. Let me see. If you want me to talk about some of these other games, I can. Wagner at Stonehill. I talked about this already because Wagner is coming off that game where they played Long Island really close. That was a big game for Wagner. And they're actually in a Long Island sandwich. I don't know if that's a sandwich with all the alcohol in it or what it is, but maybe it's some Italian sandwich of some kind. But Wagner has Long Island again next after they just played Long Island close. So they have this Stonehill game sandwiched in between 2 games against the top team in the conference, and that's because of a postponed game earlier in the season that changed the schedule. Wagner, they did lose to Stonehill, however, already, though, so they might not overlook Stonehill just because they lost at home already to Stonehill by 9. So that might keep them in check a little bit here, but they are still in the Long Island sandwich here, man, like I said. So I would probably have to lean to Stonehill here. Stonehill's coming off a really ugly loss at Chicago State, who's not a good team. So Stonehill might be in more of a bounce-back mode here. I would lean Stonehill, but not really a strong opinion. It was on my list of games to talk about my leans, though. Stonehill's up to a 3-point favorite. I don't know if you want to lay any sort of points in a game like that with a total in the 120s, but I would lean to Stonehill slightly in that one. It's a party sub? Yeah, maybe. The stupid rich people in the Hamptons buying the party subs. I don't know. All right. What else do we have here? Again, I mean, I can talk about some of these other games if you want me to, but I'm trying to skip them for time, especially because a lot of these games are just not really very interesting. Liberty at UTEP on ESPN2. I don't know why this gets a TV billing. Liberty is still undefeated in the Conference USA, man, and they only have 3 losses on the season. They're probably going to be a hyped team if they make the tournament, but I think they're going to have to win their conference to win the tournament, man, or to get into the tournament. So, I don't know. Liberty is escaping in a lot of games. They've had a lot of close calls, and they're coming off another one at New Mexico State. Maybe that means they'll show up with a little bit more focus here, but maybe they won't because they're playing UTEP, who's one of the worst teams in the conference, and they already beat UTEP at home once pretty easily by 11. So Liberty might not take UTEP seriously, and it's a 4th road game in 5 games, which doesn't really make it easy either. UTEP did just pull off an upset at Jacksonville State. So that was a nice road win for UTEP there. So even though, I think UTEP will show up for Liberty here, it's a tough spot for them just because they're coming off another game where they're coming off a game where they pulled off an upset. So they have to play the underdog role multiple games in a row. The money looks like it has come in fading Liberty, though. They're down from 7.5 to 7 here. The 7 looks really easy to lay with Liberty with this huge record disparity between the two teams. Total is low in the 130s, so there are some things that make it look like you should take the points here. I'm not so sure. I know that Liberty is an overvalued team, but Liberty coming off that game against New Mexico State, they were favored in this game, I think, So they actually didn't cover, so they're actually coming off an escape against New Mexico State. So I actually probably slightly lean towards Liberty in that one. Not a strong opinion, though. All right, next up, let me see here. La Tech at FIU, let me see. I had some opinion on this. Yeah, La Tech is, this is also in Conference USA. La Tech is coming off 2 pretty nice wins against Sam Houston and then upsetting Missouri State on the road. Sorry, Justin. Beating 2 of the decent teams in the Conference USA that are around them in the standings. And they have a big game on deck against Jacksonville State, who is one of the better teams in the conference and a team that already beat Louisiana Tech once. They're ahead of Louisiana Tech in the standings, so this could be a sandwich spot playing Florida International here, who's not a great team in the conference. This will be the first time these teams play this year. Florida International is coming off losing at home to Delaware. That is an ugly loss, man. I'm sure FIU was favored in that one. Delaware's one of the worst teams in the conference, if not the worst. Yeah, Florida International were 8.5-point favorites, and they lost the game outright. So I talk about that when you have a substantial favorite that lost the game outright. A lot of times they will show up focused in the next game. They do have Liberty on deck, which might be a concern. And then Missouri State and Sam Houston. So they do have some bigger games on deck too. But if I was going to play the game, I would have to go FIU in this one. Let me see. Louisiana Tech, where are you at? There are too many Techs. There they are. FIU is a 4-point favorite in this game. But yeah, that's what I would do. I would lay it with FIU. Also, there's no way that the public's going to want to do that. They're going to see, wait a minute, how am I getting points with Louisiana Tech, who has the better overall record and the better conference record, but I'm getting points? Yeah, well, the odds makers are telling you not to believe the records there. They're telling you one team has overperformed a bit, Louisiana Tech. KenPom probably bears that out too, although I don't want to go into that much detail in a game that I'm not playing. But he's got La Tech as the 40th luckiest team in the nation. And for, who are we talking about? FIU. He has them 311th in luck, FIU. And they play fast, and Louisiana Tech plays slow. So if FIU speeds it up, it could throw Louisiana Tech out of their comfort zone. And yeah, Florida International has been the underperforming team. KenPom does concur with that as well. So you're getting an undervalued commodity with FIU there if you do play it. That's what I would do. I would lay it with Florida International in that one. All right, next best bet. This is the only, all my other games are in big conferences, which I already gave out one of them on Iowa State. This is the only small conference game I have. We're going to take Charleston Southern plus 3.5 at Radford. I mean, people are going to look at this. I mean, I guess it doesn't look that easy to lay the points with Radford here, but this is all about the spot. Both teams have similar records. Sure, fine, whatever. Radford is actually up from 3.5. You might be able to find a 4 on this out there. I think it's mostly 3.5s out there, though. But this is all about fading Radford, man. Look at the spot that Radford is in. Radford just played the 2 top teams in the conference, Winthrop. They played both teams for the second time, Winthrop and then High Point, and they played both of them really close. They took Winthrop to the wire and only lost by 2. So that was the second time Radford took Winthrop right to the wire. That was at home this time. Then they had to go on the road and face High Point, and they were huge underdogs. High Point, the team that dominated the conference the last 2 years, although they only won the conference last year. High Point's the best team in the conference again. Radford were 14.5-point underdogs in this game at High Point, and even though they lost by 9, this game was basically right to the wire. The game was within 2 in the final minute, basically, of the game. It was a 2-point game after Radford, I believe it hit a 3 to cut it back to 2 with a minute to go, basically. So Radford went all out in this game, man, and they basically took High Point right to the limit, and now they're coming off of those 2 huge games. I don't see them having a whole lot left in this one, man. I know they only have Gardner-Webb next. That's not a look ahead. Gardner-Webb is disgustingly bad this year, but it's still, I think, a double hangover spot for Radford here, and they already beat Charleston Southern shortly before they played those 2 games. They went on the road and beat Charleston Southern by 9, so this is a road revenge angle here for Charleston Southern. Charleston Southern in this game were only 1.5-point underdogs, so they did not cover. But if you look at what happened in this game, Radford shot well from 3-point range, 43% from 3. Charleston Southern lost the turnover battle at home, so maybe they can clean that up. But they had a horrible shooting game. Charleston Southern actually tied in the rebounding battle, and they actually had more field goal attempts in the game. But they lost because they only shot 38% from the field. You got to think there's going to be some sort of positive regression there. Radford probably won't hit that high of a percentage from 3 this time. They also, I don't think they take that many threes. Charleston Southern takes more threes, and they were just ice cold from 3-point range in that game. So maybe there'll be some positive regression there too. 22% was pretty low from 3-point range, but just overall, they're missing their shots. So there might be some positive regression in store for Charleston Southern coming into that game too. So I like Charleston Southern in that one, man, plus the points. That's what we're going to do. And looking at KenPom, there's some things to like about this too. Charleston Southern, more of a balanced team. They do play fast, but they're also really, really low in the luck index. They're the 11th unluckiest team in the nation, according to KenPom. So Charleston Southern has actually underperformed a bit, according to KenPom, whereas Radford, Radford's also unlucky, but not as unlucky. Radford does play fast as well. I think both teams play fast. But I believe with Charleston Southern, you're getting the better defense. Radford, 262, according to KenPom defensively. They're a bit more skewed towards the offense. Yes, Charleston Southern is worse on offense, but they are the better defense, technically, getting points. They're close to like 20 ranking spots better defensively than Radford. So Charleston Southern, better defense, getting points. All right. But yes, I like that side. Villanova at Creighton, 2:30 p.m. on Fox. Big East game here. It's a big game. Villanova is near the top of the conference. They're the last team considered to be a tournament team right now in the Big East. Villanova is coming off a close call against Marquette, man. They did not play well against Marquette. They were 9.5-point favorites, and they only won by 3. So, you know, I talk about that. When a team has a scare as a big favorite, a lot of times they'll show up with more intensity in the next game. They don't have anything big on deck. They got Xavier. Villanova playing Creighton here. They actually lost at home to Creighton, too, so there's no way they're going to overlook Creighton here, man, in my opinion. It'll be a big game for Villanova. Villanova's only got 3 conference losses. One of them was at home to Creighton, and the only other 2 teams they lost to were to St. John's and Connecticut. So Creighton is the only team below them in the conference they've lost to. They lost to them as a home favorite. You know, I like that angle, too. When a team was a favorite, they were only a 4.5-point favorite. They lost the game outright, man. So I think they're going to show up with a bigger effort this time. So I do like Villanova in this one, even though it might look too easy. Creighton, yeah, they're coming off a bad game against DePaul. They lost, by 1 there. This Creighton team just isn't really that good this year, though, man. They do have Connecticut on deck and then St. John's. I'm not going to say they're going to overlook Villanova. They probably won't, but you're getting the better team, Villanova, in what should be a focus spot for multiple reasons. I would have to lean Villanova here, although the money is not agreeing with me. Villanova's a 3.5-point favorite. It does look too easy to lay the points. I'm not going to disagree with that. 83% of the tickets are on Villanova, so they're a public side. Only 71% of the cash. Public's not always wrong, though, man. I'm not gonna play a game like this, but I think there are more reasons to lean towards Villanova in that one. The total is in the 140s there. All right, ABC at 3 p.m. Big game between number 25 Kentucky and number 14 Florida in the SEC. Kentucky, They're coming off season sweeping Tennessee, so they're coming off a pretty big win, man, against Tennessee. This is a huge game against Florida, too, but the spot is a little bit iffy, I think, for Kentucky because it's going to be a second big game in a row. I think Florida might be playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder coming into this because I believe in the Todd Golding era, he's Florida's coach right now, I believe Florida is 0-4 against Kentucky. I believe they have not beaten Kentucky under Todd Golden. As crazy as that sounds, Kentucky has had their number every time. So maybe there's a matchup thing. Maybe Kentucky matches up well against them. And, of course, if you want Florida here, you're laying a ton of points. That's kind of the problem with Florida here. But Florida's just kind of rolling right now. They just had an easy win against Georgia. Kentucky coming up that huge comeback, by the way. Tennessee was blowing Kentucky out of that game, and Kentucky had to make a huge comeback against a physical, defensive Tennessee team. That's not easy, man. So I do think I would have to lean towards Florida in this one if I was going to play the game. The money seems like it agrees. Florida's up from 11.5 to 12.5. 54% of tickets, 60% of the cash coming in on Florida. Again, I think Florida might take Kentucky a little bit more seriously just because of the recency. They've struggled against them recently. But again, there could be a matchup problem. Maybe Mark Pope just knows how to deal with Florida. I don't know, man. And, of course, yeah, a team that's beaten a team 4 times in a row, and now they're getting 12.5 points, so you don't even need them to win the game. That is something. But I think overall, I probably would have to lean to Florida on that one if I was going to play it. All right, Big Ten Network at 3 p.m., Penn State at Oregon. This is an ugly one between maybe the two worst teams. Well, I don't know. I don't even think Oregon's the worst team in the Big Ten, man. Oregon's sitting at the bottom of the standings. They're lower than Penn State. But I think probably Oregon's probably better than Penn State, Rutgers, and Maryland, in my opinion. Not better than Northwestern. But if you look at, well, actually, I don't know. Maybe KenPom will tell us. Yeah, Northwestern is probably better than Oregon. Let me see. Where does he have Northwestern at? I'm just curious. Yeah, he has Northwestern way better than them. Very underrated team, but Northwestern is. But if you're going to look at this game, you're going to notice that Oregon has this horrible, horrible record, even worse than the awful Penn State, and Oregon is laying 6.5 points. Well, why is that? Well, it's because the odds makers are telling you Oregon is massively underperformed. Obviously, they're not a good team. I'm not going to argue that they are, but they're better than the record makes them look to the extent that the odds makers are giving them that much respect in the number. The public's going to want nothing to do with that. They're going to think that line makes no sense. But when a line makes no sense, the odds makers are doing it for a reason, man. And for Penn State just upset Washington on the road, man. I think they were double-digit underdogs in that game. Yeah, Washington's not as bad as their record looks. Penn State were 12.5-point dogs in that game, and they pulled off the upset. So I don't see them having much left after that, man. And Penn State played close against USC at home the game before that, too. I think Penn State might be all out of steam. They're going to be in a letdown spot here. Third road game in 4 games. I know, yes, now they're used to playing on the Pacific Coast, like adjusted to the time zone, but still, that was a pretty monster upset for them against Washington. So it would be Oregon for me or leave the game alone. Oregon's lost a bunch of games in a row. They're coming back home from having to go to Indiana and losing both games. They actually played pretty well against Purdue, though, believe it or not, on the road. Now Oregon's back at home. Last time they were at home, they lost badly to Iowa. And I like when teams return home in college and they lost their last home game because that will focus them a little bit more because they want to get a win in front of their home crowd. So this game would be Oregon or pass for me. Oregon's up from 5.5 to 6. I would lay it if I was going to play it, although it is very difficult to lay points like that with a hideous Oregon team that really does not play well offensively. They offend me. That's how offensive they are. All right. I'm keeping track of like what game I want to talk about next as far as like leans and whatever. All right, we got TNT True TV at 3 p.m. Marquette at Xavier. This is an ugly Big East game, man. Marquette did just play well, man. They almost upset Villanova. But if you look at the rest of what's going on in this situation, Marquette lost at home, I think, to Xavier. All right, wait, did they? No, they won. Excuse me. They won by 1. So maybe Marquette will take Xavier seriously, though, because Marquette were 5.5-point favorites at home against Xavier, and they almost lost the game. So that is an angle to use where maybe Marquette will show up because of that. But they're coming off that big game against Villanova. They do have St. John's on deck, but you know already what Xavier did in the last game, man. As huge underdogs again, they took St. John's to overtime, man, on the road this time, and they have Villanova on deck. So that's a huge sandwich spot, really, that Xavier's in. They haven't played Villanova yet this year. Even though I know they lost at Marquette, they gave Marquette a scare. So I actually think there's more to like in this game about Marquette, or there's less to dislike about Marquette in this game, I should say. The spot is just worse for Xavier, man, after they put in that huge effort in the Battle of the Patinos and almost pulled off a double-digit upset. I would only be able to look at Marquette in this one. The number seems like it is agreeing with me. Xavier down from 3.5 to 2 here, so you've lost some value on the number there, but I would take the points with Marquette if I was going to play that one. Kyle, what's up, man? I had to go early-ish, man. I mean, this is Saturday, college basketball. Like, it's too huge of a show, so I can't have this show ending, like, afternoon or whatever. So I have to get it done, man. UL Monroe and Texas State. This game, I can't believe I actually considered UL Monroe in this game, but that is the way I would lean in this one. Texas State's coming off a big game. They just beat Troy. That's a huge game. Troy is still the best team in the Sun Belt, even though they're behind App State in the standings now. That is a big win, man, for Texas State, who has not been that good on the season. Now they're playing UL Monroe, who I believe they already beat. Yeah, they already beat UL Monroe on the road, although they only beat them by 5. So that's one thing to maybe be concerned about, that Texas State were 10.5-point favorites in that game, and they only won by 5. But it was still a road win, so you could take it both ways. For me, it's hard to gauge that. Like, I like when, in the second matchup, when a home team had a scare in the first matchup, when the road team had a scare, it still won the game. It is still like a road revenge angle, I think, where it's like, like Texas State might be thinking, well, we already beat UL Monroe on the road. Of course we could beat them easily at home, right? That might be their mindset here. And Texas State has South Alabama on deck, and that's a big game too. They're in third place in the conference. So it's a sandwich spot plus road revenge for UL Monroe here. So the only way I could look at this game is to play UL Monroe. My reservations would be mainly that, Texas State did fail to cover as a big, big favorite against UL Monroe. And UL Monroe is absolutely atrocious. So that is the other thing. UL Monroe is coming off getting blown out by Arkansas State. But Arkansas State is probably the most underrated team in this conference. They're in the middle of the pack in the conference, but they are actually pretty good as far as the Sun Belt is concerned. UL Monroe does have Troy on deck, but when you're UL Monroe and you have one conference win, you're not really overlooking anybody, man. So it would be UL Monroe in this game or pass on the game. Texas State did move up from a 12-point favorite to a 13.5-point favorite. But, I would take the points with UL Monroe if I was going to play that. But you want to see how bad UL Monroe is? KenPom has them in the bottom. He has them, whatever that is, the 11th worst team in college basketball. He has them unlucky, though. He has them as one of the unluckiest teams, too. So there you go. Out of the bottom-ranked teams, they're the unluckiest out of all of them, at the very least. So that's something that UL Monroe can hang their hat on. I never sleep, correct. All right. What else do we have going on here? We have these ugly American East games here. I don't think I had a whole lot going on with that. NJIT is overrated, though, man. I'll just keep pointing that out. I'm looking to see what I had next for, like, my next lean I was going to talk about here. South Alabama and Arkansas State at 3 p.m. is probably the most interesting game in the Sun Belt today. South Alabama beat Arkansas State by 4 at home already, but I think this is going to be a big game for both teams. Arkansas State, by the way, was actually a road favorite in that game, believe it or not, of 4.5. So this is a situation where the road favorite lost the first game on the road. So that would have me leaning towards Arkansas State. I do think Arkansas State is an undervalued team as well. Like I was pointing out, they're a good team, man. South Alabama coming off a road game against Southern Miss. Southern Miss not a very good team, though. Arkansas State coming off a much easier game, though, beating UL Monroe at home. So I think the spot sets up better for Arkansas State here. We got Arkansas State actually in revenge mode, and it's revenge mode losing as a road favorite in the prior game. And you might be getting a little bit of line value now. They're up from 7 to 7.5 here, and they were 4.5 on the road. Like, if they were 4.5 on the road, maybe that line wasn't totally accurate, and maybe it was a little bit too high. But even so, like, this line should probably be like, I don't know, like maybe even like 9.5. So Arkansas State in the line just dropped a little bit out of 6.5, but I would only be able to lay the points with Arkansas State there. I think they're the better team. The odds makers are telling you they're the better team. There might be some slight line value there, believe it or not. And if the public looks at this game, they're only going to want to take the points with South Alabama. Like, how am I getting 7 points with the team with the better record, right? But again, those types of things can be misleading. I will point out that in the WAC, we're going to start having third conference meetings because that's a conference with only 7 teams in it. So the teams are all going to start playing each other for the third time, which is insane. We do have, I guess, a TV game in the HBCU, the historically black colleges and universities, whatever the hell it is. People are going to get mad at me for saying, what did I say? Colored, something like that yesterday. Dirty Sock, what's up, man? I watched some of that game last night, the late game there while I was doing the handicapping. I had it on. This game is not interesting to me, though. Florida A&M at Jackson State. This is actually at Jackson State. This one's not in California. It's on HBCU Go, so there is actually a streaming service, I guess, for just the black colleges. Historically black colleges. I have no idea, dude. Florida A&M just broke a 4-game losing streak with a win, so that could give them some momentum coming into this one, and they already lost at home to Jackson State. So I'd be looking in Florida A&M's direction in this one. Florida A&M were actually 7.5-point favorites in that home game that they lost to. So that would have me even more looking towards Florida A&M in this one. I know I talked about how Jackson State, they battle tested themselves outside of conference. They face a real gauntlet outside of conference. They are coming up an ugly loss to Pine Bluff. Arkansas Pine Bluff is one of the better-ish teams in this conference. I don't think they're actually that good, though. Southern and Bethune-Cookman are actually the 2 best teams in the SWAC. So that's kind of an ugly loss, given that Arkansas Pine Bluff is overrated. Jackson State lost that game by 21 points, so they might show up in this game, too. Plus, they get to host this game, which is like kind of an event. But I still think I would probably have to lean to Florida A&M in this one. It's not anything that's really on my radar, but talking about it because it is a streaming game. Florida A&M dropped from 1.5 to 1 here, but the odds makers are telling you they're the better team by lining them as a road favorite here. But I know Jackson State, their overall record doesn't look good at all either because they face a really, really difficult out-of-conference schedule. So that's what's going on in that game. I would lay it with Florida A&M, though, probably. Or I would lay the money line, actually. Yeah, is that Robitussin and fried chicken? Yeah. I don't know, man. Might have to check it out. See if you can find a stream of that game that's mirroring that stream or something. You know what I mean? I don't know, because it's such an off the beaten path game and one of the worst conferences in college basketball. But you can usually find a stream somewhere for like every game, man. I shouldn't recommend that. I mean, in theory, you probably can do that. I'm not recommending it, though. You shouldn't do that. Don't. Yeah. Yeah. Get off my back, YouTube. All right. The big 3:30 game is Georgia at Oklahoma. Let's see here. There'll be Hennessy ads on that channel, by the way. Georgia coming off getting blown out by Florida. And I think it was a little bit misleading, too, not just because I did give out Georgia as a play in this one, but look at what happened in this game, man. Georgia shot 35% from the field. They had 9 more field goal attempts than Florida did, but they shot horribly from the floor. Florida was over 50% from the floor. That's basically what did Georgia in. There was just it was kind of a major shooting outlier type of game there. I know Florida is good on defense. I'm not going to deny that, but Georgia, they're usually a very good offensive team, Georgia is, and they just had a horrible shooting game in the game. The game, at least, I think, should have been closer, even though Georgia did lose the rebounding battle, too. But that was a little bit of a misleading result. Now we got Georgia coming off a blowout loss. They've lost 4 of 5. So I think you will actually get a focused Georgia team, in my opinion, coming into this. And I don't like the spot for Oklahoma. Oklahoma, they're going nowhere this year. They did break a long losing streak. And a lot of times I do like when a team loses a losing streak because they'll break that losing momentum and show up focused in the next game. 8 losses in a row, I think is what they had there. The problem is the win that they had was against Vandy, man, on the road. That was a big upset win for Oklahoma. They were like 7.5-point underdogs in that game, so they pulled off a huge upset there. So I think they might be in a letdown spot here, man. Oklahoma not really going anywhere. They got Tennessee and Texas A&M on deck. Those might be bigger games too. I would have to lean to Georgia in this game. I considered it as maybe a play, but there just wasn't enough going for it. The money's coming in on Oklahoma, but I don't agree with it. I would take the point or points with Georgia. Oklahoma's up from pick'em to 1. 60% of the tickets, 90% of the cash on Oklahoma. Money is coming in on Oklahoma. I disagree with it. I would lean towards Georgia, but again, I'm staying away from that. I'm going to take a break and then come back after I get more water. Empty on my nose, and I don't use that. You guys saw that whole thing with that baby company that somehow was just putting out all this basically pedophilic content with their ads. I don't know how nobody noticed that for so long, and it finally blew up. Maybe because the Epstein files are in the limelight now. People decided, hey, look at this, and decided to shed light on it. That stuff is disgusting, man. But they had a snot sucker thing for babies. That's what that's. I need one of those for myself, is what I'm thinking. Liberty versus UTEP, not really. I mean, it looks way too easy to play Liberty in that game. Obviously, Liberty's nowhere near as good as their record looks. But given what the spot looks like in that game, I mean, Liberty is coming off almost getting upset by New Mexico State. And I think UTEP played a close game against, I think they actually upset somebody, right? Jacksonville State, maybe. So I think the spot is actually slightly better for Liberty. But from a numbers perspective, it looks way too easy to play Liberty in that game. So that's the problem with it. Situation would have me slightly leaning to Liberty there. There's no way I would touch that game from a side perspective. Noticing air. Yeah. The number 1 luckiest team. There are going to be spots to fade them. Well, one of the spots to fade them was the prior game, New Mexico State. I did mention that as a lean. I liked New Mexico State in that game, and they did cover. That was, I think, kind of the spot to fade them. Liberty, this isn't really a spot to fade them because now they're coming off a scare. Correct. KenPom has them as the luckiest team in the country. Yeah, they're not as good as they look. They're still the best team in that conference, though. That conference is absolutely terrible. The next best team in that conference, I don't even know how far down they are in KenPom's rankings. Sam Houston is the next best. Sam Houston's a bit of an undervalued team. There is that. I was talking about that, but now they're kind of on the radar because they started winning games. But I was talking about earlier in the season how Sam Houston was way underrated. Liberty's overrated, but they are still the best team in that conference. But there definitely is a chance they don't win that conference tournament, man, and then they would be out of the tournament if that was the case. All right, I will be right back, and then I will get to. I still have 2 more plays. I'm gonna go through the rest of the board here. We don't have a ton left, at least. I don't know. Hopefully it's not another hour, but we'll see. What was the last game I talked about? Oklahoma. All right, I'll be back in a second. Yeah, all right. Well, we're good. It'll end probably at 10:30 my time at the latest. Liberty is cheating, man. They're the team now because they have they're the Jerry Falwell team. They're the Christianity Inc. team. So yeah, that's what's going on with them. They're probably a huge Zionist school. All right, I'll be back in a second.
What?
Are you all right, Mr. O'Hare? You look worried.
Well, Josh, I am a little worried. My Celtics are playing a very important basketball game tonight, and I really want them to win.
It's like you say, the most important thing is that they tried their hardest and they have fun.
No. No. The most important thing is that they win. I mean, we're not talking about kickball here, where there's absolutely nothing at stake. We're talking about the National Basketball Association. They have to win. You understand? They're tearing down the Boston Garden at the end of this season, so this is their last chance at glory. They will not lose, because I won't let them lose. Do you understand? Don't cry. Don't cry. I was just being silly.
All right, hopefully I'm not going to get a copyright strike for that. That is Celtic Pride, everybody. Go check that movie out. I don't know where you can even find it now. It's got to be somewhere. Decent movie. Way funnier than critics will give it credit for. All right. Peacock, 4 p.m., Kansas State at number 3, Houston. Houston's going to be a huge favorite in this game. Kansas State having a pretty bad season. They'll probably show up for this game. I mean, they just lost by almost 30 at home to Cincinnati. You know they'll at least probably get up for this game. It might be a game where Houston just kind of goes through the motions. You know Houston. They play slow. They got a big game on deck with Iowa State and then Arizona and then Kansas. So they got a gauntlet here. 2 of those games on the road, too. I don't think Houston gets out of those 3 games without taking another loss. So they might be looking ahead. So this is probably just get in, get out for Houston. I mean, I don't think they're going to lose the game, but I would take the points with Kansas State if I was going to look at this game. We know Houston, they play slow. Again, like I said, it's a game where they just don't even have to put in a full effort to win this game. They're up to a 23.5-point favorite from 22. Total is low at 146. Kansas State doesn't want to play slow, so it might be frustrating for them to have to do it. But, again, I think if it's a slow game, I mean, Houston could, they're probably going to not even get I don't think Houston gets to 80 in this game. You know what I mean? Even though Kansas State might give up some points every now and again. Again, I think it's a game where Houston could just take their foot off the gas by the end of it, win by double digits, not cover, that type of game. 88% of tickets, 91% of the cash on Houston. They're definitely a public side. I would fade them in that game from a point spread perspective. Yes, that's what I thought. They're, Zionists, and they have that, fake adoption scam thing that's going on there where they're scamming young women into giving up their babies. Whatever's going on there, there's been a little bit of an expose on that. Cassandra Fairbanks is working on that. I mean, Cassandra McDonald. Oh, wait, what's her name now? I forget. Whatever her name is now. Formerly Tim Pool's Booker. You know who I'm talking about. She's good. She's awesome, actually. 4 p.m., Fox Sports 1, Colorado at number 22, BYU. Colorado at least is used to playing playing games in elevation, which is what they're doing here. Colorado coming off a disgusting 34-point loss to Texas Tech. I know Texas Tech is good, but a 34-point loss to anybody, I think you're going to be pretty mad about that. It is the third road game in 4 games for Colorado, although I kind of expect them to show up, though, after a horrible game like that. For BYU, they just ended a losing streak with a win over Baylor, though, and that game was not the greatest game for BYU. I think Baylor had a huge comeback in the game. I think BYU might have taken their foot off the gas. So there are some positives for BYU here because they didn't have the greatest game against Baylor. Sometimes they'll refocus. A team will refocus after a performance like that. BYU ended a 4-game losing streak. where you could kind of see why they lost those games. I mean, they lost to Arizona, at Kansas. Then they got into a sandwich spot, and I gave out Oklahoma State as a play. And then they had to play Houston. I mean, they weren't expected to win those 3 games. And then the other game, the game that they lost as a favorite was a sandwich spot. So, BYU's not as bad as that run makes them look. Now, they did break out of that, but the problem is they do have Arizona and Iowa State on deck here. So those are huge games on deck. So I probably would have to lean towards Colorado in this game. BYU is up to a 15.5-point favorite from 14.5, 89% of the tickets and only 65% of the cash. BYU looks like a public side with less of the money coming in on them. Lean to Colorado for me, but no strong opinion really. Number 24, Louisville against Baylor, and this game is not at Baylor. It's going to be in Fort Worth, Texas. Baylor is in Waco, so this game is like I don't know if you want to call it a semi-home game for Baylor, because it is still not that far away from their campus, but whatever you want to call it, it's, semi-home for Baylor, I guess is what we want to call it. Louisville looked way too good in their last game. They put up 118 points and won by 41 against NC State, who's a pretty good team. This Louisville team, they're a team that they live and die by the 3. So if they're making a ton of 3s, they're going to absolutely destroy you. If they're missing their 3s, they're going to lose. So this Louisville team is a high variance team. It's a team that I usually would not want anything to do with. I just don't want anything to do with their games, and I don't here either. But I don't want anything to do with a team that just put up 118 points and won by 41. I don't want to do it against what is going to be probably another tournament team in NC State. And Louisville has another projected tournament team on deck with SMU, although they did already beat SMU once. There's the potential they overlook Baylor here, man. This is kind of a weird spot for an ACC team to have to – at least these ACC teams do – play at SMU. Although Louisville didn't play at SMU yet. They're making a trip out of it. They're staying in Texas after this game and playing SMU. So Louisville hasn't made this trip yet. So it is a weird trip because they played, SMU at home already. So it is a weird trip for an ACC team to have to go out here to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Baylor. The problem I have with Baylor is Baylor just put in a couple of big efforts in a row, man. They played Iowa State and BYU really tough. Well, not really tough, but they made huge comebacks in both games. Baylor was losing both games, and they made both games close by the end of it. So I don't know if I could trust Baylor in this game, man. I don't know if I can. Baylor, they probably realize at this point they're not going to make the tournament, whatever. I guess they'll still show up for a game against Louisville, but it's not. I can't make it a play. There's no way. I'll lean to Baylor plus the points, but coming up those 2 big games where they were able to play 2 ranked conference opponents close, I just don't know exactly what they're going to have left here, man. But, yeah, the spot's not good for either team here. Jeff, what's up, man? You think Baylor's going to show up? It's going to be difficult, given what that spot is. I'll agree with Baylor, but this is not going to be on my card. Nowhere close to my card. Louisville's 6.5-point favorite, 61% of the tickets, only 57% of the cash. You might get 7 on Baylor if you do like Baylor. The total is extremely high, mostly because of Louisville, at 163.5. An under might be worth a look in a game like this because both teams are coming off really high-scoring games, but that was a product of Louisville hitting 1 million threes in their game and Baylor getting, pushed getting their pace pushed high by BYU. BYU's like all offense too, man. So I think an under might be worth a look in that game, and the public will have nothing to do with an under in a game like that. All right, what else we got going on here? I gotta consult my sheet here still. All right, Wyoming at Colorado State. I did list this game as being something to talk about. Oh yeah, Wyoming just played really close against Utah State, and they were coming off San Diego State too, and they played San Diego State to within 9. That game wasn't that close, but they came off of that and they played Utah State, who's the best team in the Mountain West. Wyoming took Utah State right to the limit, man. They lost the game by 2 points. after Utah State got a little bit too comfortable, I think, Wyoming came all the way back and got it to within a 2-point margin in the final minute of the game. So I think Wyoming could be in a hangover spot after that. Man, they're playing Colorado State, who's looking way down this year, even though they're actually above Wyoming in the standings now in the conference. But Wyoming already beat Colorado State right before those two games I just mentioned at home by 11. So there's the potential they might not pay attention to them. They got Fresno on deck, and Fresno actually beat Wyoming in Fresno. So I don't like the spot for Wyoming here, man. It's a little bit of revenge for Colorado State, maybe an overlooked spot for Wyoming. And Wyoming coming up that huge performance to try to get back in that game against Utah State. For Colorado State, they're coming off an easy win over Air Force, although that is kind of a revenge game because those teams are geographic rivals, but it's such a one-sided rivalry. Air Force is such ass. I don't think it really matters. So I like Colorado State in this game, man. It's not on my card, but this one was listed as one of my stronger leans. Colorado State's up from 4.5 to 5.5 here. I would look to lay it with Colorado State if I was going to play it. The odds makers are telling you they're actually the better team, even though their record is only slightly better. The odds makers are telling you it's a little bit better than that, or that they are a little bit better than that. ACC Network, 4 p.m., Stanford at Wake Forest. Weird spot for Stanford. They're already out on the East Coast, though. They just beat BC on the road. Not a big win or anything. Going down to Wake, but if you look at the line in this game, Wake is a 4.5-point favorite, even though they're a 500 team overall, and Stanford has a way better record than that. The public's going to see that and only want to take the points, man. It's one of those games where the odds makers are telling you something different than what the records would tell you. They're telling you that Wake is maybe even the slightly better team here. So, I listened to what the odds makers are telling me more than anything else because records can be misleading. Final scores can be misleading, all that. Wake just broke a 5-game losing streak with a win over Georgia Tech. So not an impressive win, Georgia Tech. So I think that might end their losing momentum, and that I do think Wake might show up in this game, man. The one problem is they do have Clemson on deck, so there's the potential look ahead there, but I would lean to Wake in this game. It's not a strong opinion or anything, but Wake is up from 3.5 to 4 there. That's the way I would lean in that one. Miami at NC State on ESPN2. Miami is in a letdown spot. I gave you guys Miami as a play against North Carolina. They did get helped out by North Carolina having that major injury to Wilson. But even without that, I think Miami was in line to win that game anyway. It was a good win for Miami, man, knocking out one of the Blue Bloods, highly ranked UNC team, even though I think UNC is overranked by a pretty significant amount. But Miami could be in a letdown spot of a big win like that. The problem is they might still try to show up because it's not like NC State's an opponent you're going to overlook. NC State's ahead of Miami in the standings right now. Both teams look headed for the tournament right now. So this game isn't exactly – it's not really a game where I'm like running to the window to fade Miami, you know what I mean? Even if I do lean against them here. Miami's got Virginia Tech on deck, which is not a bigger game really because they're looking like they're probably not going to make the tournament. NC State should be in a bounce-back spot because they just got embarrassed by Louisville. But they got North Carolina on deck, and NC State just lost a 6-game win streak. And you know I talk about that. When a team loses that winning momentum and it gets snapped, sometimes they will actually be hung over in the next game. So there are some things I don't like about the spot for NC State here. I'll lean that way because it is primarily a letdown spot for Miami, plus NC State did get embarrassed in the last game. So I'll lean NC State, but it's not that strong of an opinion for me. NC State's a 5.5-point favorite. It looks like they are getting some of the money. 54% of the cash on them, 50-50 on the tickets. And KenPom, I'm pretty sure, does have NC State as the better team. He's got them just outside of the top 25, and he's got Miami 41st. So that's what we got going on in that game. CBS Sports at 4 p.m. in the Colonial. We got the best Colonial matchup of the day, Hofstra and UNC Wilmington. Two of the best teams in this conference, maybe the top 2 teams in the conference, although Hofstra's in 3rd place. I've been telling you Hofstra is an underrated team. I mean, they had a really weird stretch in conference play where they lost 5 games in a row. They've been a very streaky team, but now they're back on a win streak. But they just beat Charleston on the road, man. So what's Hofstra going to have left after that small upset at Charleston? I mean, they're not going to overlook UNC Wilmington, but having to play 2 huge road games in a row doesn't set up that well for Hofstra here, man. For UNC Wilmington, they're coming off an easier win over Elon, unfortunately, because I gave out Elon as a play in that one because Wilmington had played Charleston the game before that and had this game on deck. But given how the spot sets up, I think I would have to lean Wilmington in this one. The money is disagreeing. Wilmington down from 3.5 to 2.5, 50% of the tickets and 53% of the cash on Hofstra. Now, Wilmington does play slow, and the total's pretty low to indicate that in the 130s. Money is saying Hofstra. I kind of disagree with it just based on the spot, although I do think both teams will at least show up mentally for this game. And the odds makers are telling you Hofstra is actually slightly better than UNC Wilmington is because Wilmington is not getting full home court on the line. And I don't disagree with that. It's just I don't know if I love that spot. So that's what we got going on there. I will point out that hold on. I'm looking for the next game I was going to talk about here. Where the hell is it? I don't know. That's weird. I had a game. Oh, there it is. I was going to say I had a game listed I was going to talk about. I will say, though, Portland at Northern Colorado. If you look at this game, everybody's going to think that taking the points with Portland State makes sense. Portland State, not Portland. Big Sky, Portland State, the Vikings. They have the best record in the Big Sky. Their conference record is way better than Northern Colorado's. So I think the public is going to be tempted to take points with Portland State. Like, how are they getting 3.5 here? Well, the odds makers are telling you Northern Colorado is not that much worse than Portland State. And I've been telling you Northern Colorado has been one of the most underperforming teams, if not the most underperforming team in the Big Sky. So I do lean towards Northern Colorado in this one. Portland State already beat Northern Colorado once, I think, too. Yeah, they beat them at home by 3, so I guess there's a little bit of a revenge motive there. I think Portland State might have been favored by, I don't know, maybe 3.5, maybe 2.5 in that game, so it wasn't really an outlier type of result or anything like that. For Northern Colorado, they just beat Sacramento State, not a big deal. Northern Colorado's on a nice little run, though, getting back to playing some better basketball. And Portland State did just only beat Northern Arizona, though. Not a big deal, but they're playing a third road game in a row, though, so that's not that easy. So I would lean Northern Colorado in that one. All right. Lipscomb and Queens in the Atlantic Sun. Probably the best game in the Atlantic Sun today. It's an interesting one. Lipscomb, still one of the best teams in this conference. Queens has been one of the better teams in the conference, too, although maybe overperforming a little bit. Lipscomb just had a 2-game losing streak to a couple of the other top teams in the conference and bounced back with a win over Eastern Kentucky. Now they're playing Queens. I don't believe they played Queens this year. I think this is the only time they play this year. So they're going on the road, though. But they did end a losing streak, so maybe they do have momentum going into this game against Queens. Queens is coming off a much bigger game because they just played Austin Peay. So even though they're staying at home, they're playing 2 of the best teams in the conference in 2 straight games like this. And Lipscomb, I think, still is the better team here. So I would be leaning towards Lipscomb in that game. Queens dropped from 2.5 to 1.5 there. The odds makers are telling you Lipscomb is still the better of the 2 teams. Queens not getting full home court, and that is the way I would lean in that one. Let's keep it going, man. I'm going to skip some of these games here. 4:30 p.m., we do have Western Carolina at Chattanooga. I like Western Carolina in this one. Western Carolina actually lost at home to Chattanooga by 8 earlier this year. And Western Carolina, I believe, was favored in this game. Yeah, 1.5, but still. They lost at home, so it's a little bit of a road revenge angle. And the setup for Western Carolina is not bad because they did just end a 3-game losing streak with a win. So that might end that losing momentum for them. Although one problem I would have is that it was a decisive win. They won by almost 40 points against the Citadel. I know Citadel isn't good, but when you beat any team by 40, you might be feeling a bit high on yourselves. But they only have UNC Greensboro up next. They did lose to them too, but and I guess because this is a third road game in 4 games, that does worry me a little bit as well. But I think the spot is better for Western Carolina. And for Chattanooga, I think the spot is really bad. Chattanooga, actually, even though they lost by 12 against East Tennessee, losing for the second time of the season to East Tennessee, they played really well at home. against them in a TV game earlier this year. But Chattanooga gets up for East Tennessee because they're the top team in the conference, and they're like an in-state big brother to them. But this game was a lot closer than the final score. Like, it was a 4-point game with like 3 minutes to go. So Chattanooga was in that game late. No, I do not want to do anything with my bookmarks. Shut up, Firefox. Chattanooga, yeah, the spot isn't great for them, man. They already beat Western Carolina on the road, like I said, and they got Mercer on deck. Even though they did just beat Mercer not that long ago, Mercer is still near the top of the conference standings, so I would lean Western Carolina in this one. It's not on my card or anything, but that's the way I would lean. Chattanooga did drop from a 2-point favorite to a 1.5-point favorite. Odds makers telling you Western Carolina is the better team based on the what the line is here, even though they have the somewhat worse record. So the public probably will want nothing to do with Western Carolina in that one. But that is the way I would lean. Chattanooga is having a down season, man. Western Carolina is probably not as bad as their record makes them look this year. Zach, what's up? Thanks for hanging out. You waited until I talked about the Queens Royals to talk about the Royals. Good move, if so. Southeastern Louisiana at Northwestern State at 4:30 p.m. I like Southeastern Louisiana in this game. This is a second meeting in the Southland. Northwestern State already went on the road and beat Southeastern Louisiana as an underdog. Actually, Southeastern Louisiana was a 7.5-point favorite in that game, so this is a road revenge angle right out of the gate for Southeastern Louisiana. And if we look at this now, Northwestern State's a 1-point favorite here, up from a pick'em. Like, why would they be a 1-point favorite when they're 7.5-point underdogs, man? It seems like the line is a bit too skewed based on what the teams have done since then. Although Northwestern State lost a bunch of games in a row until their most recent game. They beat Lamar on the road, but the problem is that was an upset win over Lamar. So, yes, Northwestern State did end a losing streak, and sometimes that will give a team momentum moving forward because you break out of that, like, funk that you're in. But that was a big win on the road against Lamar. It was a 6.5-point road upset. Now they're playing a CELA team that they already beat on the road as big underdogs. And up next, Northwestern State has to play McNeese, man. That's a big game. McNeese, I still think, is the best team in the conference, and McNeese already embarrassed Northwestern State once this year. I believe on their home floor, too. Where was that game? Where is it? Now I don't see. Oh, yeah, there it is. No, it was actually at McNeese, but still. I think Northwestern State's actually in a sandwich spot here based on that. CELA is coming in off winning 2 games in a row. They beat Incarnate Word. No big deal. Coming into this game with a little bit more momentum. I like Southeastern Louisiana in that one. Oddsmakers are telling you they're the slightly better team by giving them, by the line only being close to a pick'em here. Both teams have pretty ugly records, though. But, yes, I like Southeastern Louisiana in that one, plus the point. New Orleans at Houston Christian. I feel like I'm talking about too many games. Hopefully I can get this done in not too much longer. Houston Christian's coming off playing McNeese really tough, man. Houston Christian were like 16.5-point underdogs in that game. And they're a little bit of a... Oh, no, I was going to say they're an in-state rival, but I don't think they are. I think McNeese is... in Louisiana. Yeah, that's right. They're in Lake Charles. I don't know why I keep thinking they're in Texas. They're not. But that was still a huge game for Houston Christian, man. Going on the road, and as 16.5-point underdogs, they lost by 4. They played McNeese really close, so I think they could be in a letdown mode, a hangover mode after that. They're playing a New Orleans team they, believe it or not, already beat on the road by 9 in what I assume was an upset. So I think the spot's not very good for Houston Christian coming into this one, man. They're the last place team in the conference right now, too, and they almost beat, power ratings-wise, the best team in the conference, still McNeese. So, to me, it looks like a big-time hangover spot for them. New Orleans. New Orleans just got a decent win over Texas A&M, Corpus Christi, but I just don't know if they're going to overlook a Houston Christian team that came into their place and beat them. And again, the spot is just so bad for Houston Christian. New Orleans would be the only way I would play this. I think you could probably still get a good money line on New Orleans in this one if that's what you want to do. They're up from a pick'em to a 2-point favorite there. That's the only way I could look at that game. UT Martin and SIU Edwardsville might be the best game in the Ohio Valley. UT Martin just lost another game. They lost a win streak, and Maybe that loss to Morehead State then hung them over into the next game. It was a little bit of revenge for Lindenwood as well. Lindenwood beat them. Maybe now is the spot where UT Martin bounces back here, but I don't know, man. Because they're playing an SIU Edwardsville team they did already beat, although they only beat them by 6 at home. And UT Martin were 7.5-point favorites, so I guess technically they got a little bit of a scare out of that game. So maybe they will show up with more focus. They do have SEMO on deck, though, who are a pretty good team as well. Though SIU Edwardsville is actually ahead of SEMO right now in the standings, so one game behind UT Martin. Maybe UT Martin will show up for this. SIU Edwardsville just beat SEMO in a very satisfying win, beating them by almost 20. So they're coming off a pretty big game as well. A nice performance, rolling into this game on 4 wins in a row. They're going to get up for the game as well against Tennessee Martin. It's going to be an interesting game. From a handicapping perspective, it's difficult to gauge. We don't really see percentages on this yet. The total has gone up 7 points, although from a extremely low 121.5 to 128.5. Expected to be a real ugly, low-scoring game. I'm hiccuping now. The line is a pick 'em in this one, so the odds makers telling you UT Martin is actually the better team, which I agree with. I would probably lean to UT Martin to finally bounce back after the 2 straight losses there. And on the other end of that, SEMO is coming off that blowout loss to SIU Edwardsville. Now they're playing Lindenwood, who they actually lost to at home already. So it's a bit of a road revenge angle for SEMO here as well. Now, one problem is they did lose a win streak. They lost a 6-game win streak with that loss to SIU Edwardsville. So sometimes losing a win streak will hang you over. I know they have UT Martin on deck, but I still don't think they're going to overlook Lindenwood, man. And coming off an ugly loss, Lindenwood coming off the huge win over UT Martin with Tennessee State on deck, who's actually in second place in the conference. And maybe they'll overlook SEMO a little bit because they already beat SEMO once. SEMO just dropped down in the standings a little bit. That's Southeast Missouri State, by the way. That's the way I lean in this game. Southeast Missouri State. I would take the points in that one. Lindenwood is a 2-point favorite in that one. But yeah, I would fade Lindenwood in that game. Next up, 5 p.m. Fox. Best bet number 3 out of 4. Let's go. This one might be my favorite one, man. I love this spot. Iowa plus 2.5 here, man. We're going to fade Purdue. Public is going to be all over Purdue, man, especially based on what we saw recently out of these teams. Purdue ranked 13th in the country, Iowa unranked. But if you look at KenPom, he's got Purdue, 9th, so Purdue actually slightly underranked. But Iowa, almost as good defensively as Purdue is, although, Purdue has the better offense. But he's got Iowa 23rd in the country, man. So KenPom has Iowa as a legit team. They're pretty good on both sides of the ball. Believe it or not, Iowa actually better on offense than defense. Both of these teams are. So, Purdue's the better team on both sides of the ball. But Iowa, I think they can hang here, especially at home. And when you see what the spot looks like, oh boy, this screams Iowa, man. The Hawkeyes. Iowa plays slow. I know Purdue also plays slow, so it's probably going to be a slow game. Points maybe at a premium here. Total has gone up a little bit to 142. By the way, Iowa's getting all the money here. 54% of tickets on Iowa. Even that surprises me. I expect Purdue to be kind of a public side here. 80% of the actual money on Iowa, though. Purdue up from a 1.5-point favorite to a 2-point favorite. There were some 2.5s out there as well, but 2.5 or 2, either way, I think is still fine here. Now, again, KenPom is saying there's not much of a gap between these two teams. Both teams are good. Iowa, debatably, a little bit more balanced. But the other thing I like is that Purdue is a fairly lucky team at 103 in the country. Iowa's more unlucky at 255th in luck. So KenPom is telling you that Iowa's actually underperformed a little bit. And Purdue may have overperformed a little bit, even though I know I talked about how Purdue is, I think they're a legit team. They have a very experienced backcourt, etc. Iowa, I mean, they got a lot of experience playing together as a team, I think, too, because I think McCollum brought over some of his guys that have been playing under him for a bit. So I think there is still some of that, carryover from Iowa. But we're deep into the season now, man, anyway. So that, chemistry from one season to the next doesn't matter as much. It might matter again once we get to the tournament. But look at the spot that we're looking at here. these teams already played, and Purdue won by 7 at home against Iowa. Now, I know Purdue didn't cover the number. I know. So you could make the argument that, because Purdue didn't cover that number, that means they're going to take Iowa seriously. I don't think so. Purdue almost covered that number. I think they were maybe about a 10-point favorite here, which I know 10.5. The 2, the 2 might be slightly low on Purdue here, but still, I love the spot for Iowa, man. The odds makers may have skewed the number a little bit, but first of all, we do have it being a little bit of a revenge angle, so I think Purdue maybe still just won't take Iowa that seriously, but look at the spot that Purdue was in. They just had a huge game against Nebraska, a roller coaster overtime game where they went on the road, got revenge against Nebraska. I think it was was it revenge or no? It was the first time my mistake. I was thinking of Illinois. It was the first time Purdue played Nebraska. My mistake. The only time they played them. But still, it was a huge game. Purdue was winning that game by like 20-something points, I think. Blew the entire lead and then still won in overtime. That was a monster win for Purdue. Now they're playing a 4th road game in 5 games, a 2nd straight road game. They're actually playing a 6th road game in 8 days, so they're traveling all over the place, which included Pacific Coast travel as well not that long ago. And they have to play Michigan next on Tuesday, I think. So that is a huge game on deck. They're in a massive sandwich spot, man. And it gets even better for Iowa because Iowa is coming off a horrible loss to Maryland. And I know Iowa lost a 6-game win streak. Sometimes when you lose a win streak, it'll hang you over into the next game. But that is a disgusting loss. They went on the road to Maryland. Maybe they were looking ahead to Purdue. But you got to bounce back from a loss like that. I think Iowa might have been a 10-point road favorite in that game. And losing the game outright is insane against a team as bad as Maryland is. When you come off a game that's that bad of a performance, I think you might have already been looking ahead. I think you're going to bounce back. Iowa's back at home here. They actually didn't play very well the last time. The last couple times they were at home, they failed to cover. So I think Iowa's going to want to show up here, man. It might be worrisome that it's a trend because, they lost at home to Illinois, didn't cover at home against Rutgers, didn't cover at home against USC, didn't cover at home against Northwestern. So a little bit of a worrisome trend of Iowa not covering. But guess what? Iowa was favored in all those games against Northwestern, Rutgers, and USC. They were favored in all of those. They're not favored in this one. They're an underdog. So we only need them to play their slow style here, get the job done. I think they will win the game, but that's what we're going with. The spot is very, very good to play Iowa here, man. It checks like almost all my boxes, so that sounds almost sexy. But yes, Iowa is a sexy play. Or actually, it's not because Iowa plays such an ugly style. But yes, Iowa is the play there. All right. Grand Canyon at San Jose State. I lean San Jose State in this one. Not a play for me, but first of all, Grand Canyon already beat San Jose State. Obviously, San Jose State's awful. Grand Canyon beat them at home by 18. But now look at the spot for Grand Canyon. They just played tough at home against New Mexico, who's 3rd in the conference, and they got San Diego State on deck, man. So they're basically in a sandwich spot. That's going to be a TV game. They did already beat San Diego State once by 1 at home, but still, San Diego State is basically the class of the Mountain West again. They're one of the best teams in the conference again. That's a huge look-ahead spot. They might look right past San Jose State in this one, man. And for San Jose State, they're coming off of they're on a huge losing streak. They've lost 6 games in a row. They did cover at UNLV, and I told you I thought they would because I thought UNLV would be looking ahead to last night's game against Boise. We got that nice outright win with UNLV last night. And my other lean also got there. Quinnipiac, easy outright win from Quinnipiac there. So there you go. Should have added it. Would have been a 2-0 day instead of 1-0. But, I'm being selective. And UNLV looked like it wasn't going to be a win for quite a while. Looked like it wasn't going to be a cover. But anyway, San Jose State, they covered against UNLV. But I still think the spot is better for them. It's a bad spot for Grand Canyon. When you're losing all these games like San Jose State is, I think you're going to show up. Grand Canyon, for some reason, is up from a 9-point favorite to an 11.5-point favorite. You might get 12 in this game, and it's probably going to be an ugly, lower-scoring game. Total really low in the 130s. I would take the points with San Jose State in that one. All right, let's keep going, man. skipping some of these games here. A lot of these games are pretty uninteresting here. Let's keep going. We do have the Battle of Idaho. I don't know if it's a big deal, but it is a rivalry. Idaho State and Idaho. Both these teams not doing well at this point, though, in the Big Sky. It is a revenge game, I guess, for Idaho because Idaho State won the first game in Pocatello, I believe is where they play. So kind of on the other side of the state from where Moscow is, which is where University of Idaho is. But I think Idaho State will still show up because they've lost like 8 games in a row or whatever. So I don't see them not showing up for this game, even though they do play the 2 Montana teams on deck, and that's a big deal. Maybe the game does mean more to Idaho because Idaho did lose the first matchup on the road. I think they might have even been a slight favorite in that game on the road because they are a pretty big favorite in this one. Idaho's lost 3 games in a row, but they were on the road for all but that most recent game against Weber. And I told you I liked Weber in that game because Idaho was coming off a couple of big games against the Montanas, and they had this revenge game on deck against Idaho State. They do have Portland State up next, but I don't see Idaho overlooking this game. Public's probably not going to want to lay 6.5 with an Idaho team that's barely above 500, but the odds makers are telling you they're the better team by enough that they're favored by like this at home. I would lean to Idaho in this game. The money seems like it agrees. They're up from 5 to 6 here. 50-50 on the tickets, 79% of the cash on Idaho. I agree with Idaho in that one. Idaho. That would be my lean, and that one would be Idaho. All right. New Mexico State at Jacksonville State. Of course, I already talked about New Mexico State. They almost pulled off an upset against Liberty. That would have been a huge upset. That was a huge game for New Mexico State. So now I think they might be in a spot where they overlook Jacksonville State. They're playing 4 road games in a row in the last 5 games. So, I'm not going to say they're going to overlook Jacksonville State because Jacksonville State is 3rd in the conference standings right now. But that was a huge game against Liberty, man. I think it's a hangover spot. The travel is not exactly good. New Mexico State, again, another road game for them and having to go to Alabama. That's where Jacksonville State is, believe it or not. To have to play this game, it's a weird spot for New Mexico State. I believe they already beat Jacksonville State, if I remember correctly when I was looking at this game. Am I wrong about that? No, my apologies. I'm wrong. They play later in the season. They play again. So this is not a second meeting, but still simply, I think, kind of a hangover spot for New Mexico State off of that huge game against Liberty. And the spot's positive for Jacksonville State because they just had an ugly home loss to UTEP. I think they were just not paying attention. UTEP caught them. Jacksonville State wasn't a huge favorite in that game, but still, when you're a favorite against a bad team at home and you lose the game, I think you're showing up in the next game. So it's a rare spot where I actually would lean against New Mexico State here because I think New Mexico State is one of the more underperforming teams in all of college basketball. But I would lay it with Jacksonville State, probably money line in that one. They're a 2-point favorite right now. That's probably the way that I would lean in that one. All right. Stephen F. Austin and UT Rio Grande Valley in the Southland. This is a very interesting line. Rio Grande Valley, believe it or not, is favored in this game. Like, what public bettor is going to come in and look at this and see this mediocre record Rio Grande Valley team, even though, they're in 3rd place in the conference, laying 1.5 against Stephen F. Austin, who has the best record in the conference, although I've told you McNeese is actually better than Stephen F. Austin. But this line looks crazy, man. It looks so easy to play Stephen F. Austin, actually an underdog as the team with the way better record. So there's something going on with that line, man, where it looks way too easy. As far as KenPom is concerned, he's got Stephen F. Austin 85th in the country. He does have Rio Grande Valley 136th, though. Although he has Rio Grande Valley unlucky, 306th in luck. And for Stephen F. Austin, he has them still pretty unlucky, though, at 200th. So it's not exactly something that I want to get involved in here. It isn't. But, yeah, Rio Grande Valley, they're an okay team. But I don't know, man. Even to me, this line just seems a little bit crazy to me. Like, I don't know. Even I think the line might be a little bit off. This is very strange. Stephen F. Austin, I don't think the spot is bad for them, though. That's the thing. They're coming up barely getting by East Texas A&M at home. I think Stephen F. Austin paid absolutely no attention to East Texas A&M. They only beat them by 4, as huge favorites in this game. They might have been 20-point favorites here. 16 and a half. I don't know. So whatever. But that was a bad performance from UNLV Austin, only winning by 4 against a very weak opponent there as a huge favorite. So they might actually be focused in this game against Rio Grande Valley. They already beat Rio Grande Valley at home by 13, but because they're third in the conference, I don't know if they're actually going to overlook Rio Grande Valley, the Vaqueros here in this one. Rio Grande Valley's won a bunch of games in a row. They've won 8 games in a row. They're coming off a road upset win over Nichols. I think that was an upset. So the spot is actually worse for Rio Grande Valley here. Having to play a second straight big game off a road upset like that. And maybe Rio Grande Valley looks a little bit too good with this recent run that they've had. So I actually don't love Rio Grande Valley in this one. I probably actually lean to Stephen F. Austin in this one. Rio Grande Valley did flip from a 1-point dog to a 1-point favorite, but I don't get it. I don't see it. I don't know if there's like an injury or something, but given the spot, I would probably lean to Stephen F. Austin, but you know me, like there's no way I would want to do that because it looks so easy to play Stephen F. Austin, and nothing is that easy. So it's a complete stay away from me. Why is it the Courtney Love play of the day? I don't really get that. CBS Sports at 6 p.m. We got VCU at Richmond here. It's an interesting game. This is going to be, I think Richmond considers themselves to be the little brother to VCU in Virginia, because VCU is the best Virginia team in the A-10 at the very least. These teams already played once. VCU won by 8 at home. I believe VCU didn't cover that number, and Richmond played them pretty tough. Richmond played them close. So maybe VCU will take Richmond seriously because Richmond did give them a game at VCU. Richmond is coming off an easy win over LaSalle. Not a big deal there. They only have George Washington on deck. If they had St. Louis on deck, it would be a major look ahead, but that's not their next game, and they haven't played St. Louis yet. St. Louis winning in another laugher last night, by the way, at horrible Loyola Chicago team. VCU, again, I think they actually might show up for this game because that wasn't a good performance against LaSalle. They didn't perform that well against Richmond the last time they played them. Richmond is coming off a nice win over George Mason. Now, it broke a long losing streak for Richmond. Richmond had lost 6 games in a row, so sometimes when you break a losing streak, it'll give you a new momentum moving forward, but that was a big win over George Mason, who was one of the teams near the top of the conference. So I've been telling you George Mason's not as good as, obviously not as good as St. Louis, but also not as good as VCU. That has turned out to be the case. They're the most overrated team in the conference besides St. Joe's probably, but Richmond got that win. Now they're playing 2 big games in a row here, so I don't love how it sets up for Richmond, to be honest, even though they are sort of the little brother here. I would actually probably lay it with VCU if I was going to play it. VCU up from 7 to 7.5, although the line seems like maybe it's a little big. What was Richmond when they were at home? Or what was VCU, when they were at home? Let me see. They were 12.5, so yeah, I guess that line's not that far off. So, yeah, I would actually probably lean to VCU in that one for all those reasons. VCU, not playing well in that first game is huge favorites, 12.5-point favorites against Richmond. So, sticky bandits. The stinky bandits. The stinky play would be. Well, I mean, I guess that line does stink in the UT Rio Grande Valley game, but that's not really a stinky game. Like, those teams are decent teams. All right, Fox Sports 1, 6 p.m., West Virginia at UCF. Kind of a weird spot for West Virginia. Have to go down to Florida. West Virginia's coming off a decent performance at home against Texas Tech. So they're coming off a pretty big game at the very least. They lost by 7 at home to Texas Tech. Pretty respectable. I think the game wasn't really that close, though. Texas Tech might have taken their foot off the gas a little bit. UCF just got blown out on the road at Cincinnati, so I think it's going to be better for them. Come back home. UCF can't afford to lose many more games here because they're going to be on the tournament bubble, man, instead of being definitively in the tournament. I don't think UCF is that good. But I think the spot here does set up a little bit better for them. They're down from 4 to 3.5 here, but I would probably lay it with UCF in that one. I think UCF is going to speed the game up too, or at least try to. They play a somewhat fast, but way faster than West Virginia does. But UCF is really, really lucky, according to KenPom, 4th in lock. So not exactly a team you really want to get involved in. But again, yeah, not too many thoughts on that game, really. All right, let's keep going, man. McNeese is at East Texas A&M. I did mention that McNeese is, I mean, this is a game it doesn't really matter, but McNeese did barely get by Houston Christian in their last game, so they didn't play a good game in that one. They already blew out East Texas A&M by almost 40 points, though, so 102 to 66. So they might not take East Texas A&M that seriously. But I don't know. Their next opponent is also a team they blew out, Northwestern State, so I don't know. Maybe they will show up with focus this time because their last game was bad. And for East Texas A&M, though, remember, they actually played Stephen F. Austin really close. So East Texas A&M is coming off a monster effort as a huge underdog. Now they have to play another really good team that might actually be in a focus spot because they almost lost as a huge favorite. So I would have to lean to McNeese in that one. The money's not agreeing necessarily. McNeese did drop from 14 to 12, but we do see 75% of the tickets and only 57% of the cash on East Texas A&M. I don't really think East Texas A&M is actually a public side like that. That wouldn't make much sense, but if they are, I mean, that's hilarious, and you'd be fading a public home underdog there by taking McNeese, but I would have to lean to McNeese in that game. Not a play from me. LSU at Tennessee at 6 p.m. Eastern on SEC Network. LSU, they're on a bad stretch right now, man. They just got blown out at home by Arkansas. I think they might show up at least, try to salvage something on the season and play well for a game against Tennessee. Tennessee bounced back from that blown game against Kentucky. They went on the road and they beat Mississippi State. Not really a big deal there either. So this game doesn't set up really poorly for either team. Tennessee does not have a big game on deck either. They only have Oklahoma. So it's not a bad spot really for either team here. Probably you'd be getting maybe a little bit of line value looking towards the LSU side. Tennessee's up from 13 to 14. Tennessee, we know they play slow and focus on defense. Although I think their offense might not be that bad this year. KenPom has Tennessee still ranked, by the way, at 18th. So he's saying they should be ranked. They're still better defensively than offensively. Tennessee is. So covering a number like this, not as easy for them to do. It's a pretty low total in the 140s. 86% of tickets, 90% of the cash on Tennessee. They'll be a public side. I'll lean LSU slightly in that one for those reasons, but yeah, not a game that I'm interested in by any means. Yeah. But Tennessee is a little bit undervalued, though, according to KenPom, so there is that. But in that spot, I'm not a huge fan of it. 6:30 p.m. on ESPN, on ESPN, one of the big games of the day, number 16 Texas Tech at number 1 Arizona. Now, Texas Tech is coming up like a 34-point win against Colorado. Monster win. Usually I would not want to play on a team after a blowout like that. But I think Texas Tech is going to show up for this game against Arizona, though. This is a huge game. Texas Tech is a very competitive team, man. I mean, we're talking about a Texas Tech team. I mean, look at their losses this year. Illinois, Purdue, Arkansas, Houston. They beat Houston once. Then the letdown spot off of Houston, they lost to UCF. That was their worst loss of the season, but it was in a letdown spot. And then their other loss was to Kansas. So Texas Tech has been losing to mostly good teams, although Arizona is, of course, a very good team and one of the best teams in the country still. But I think the spot is bad for Arizona because what have I been preaching all year, man? When a team loses a long win streak, they tend to be hung over in the next game. And when a team goes this long undefeated and they lose their undefeated status, which I know Miami, Ohio continued theirs last night with another win. But when a team has lost their undefeated status like this late into the season, we saw this happen with Vandy, with Nebraska. The team has lost the game again the next game. And, Duke didn't cover in their game when they lost their huge win streak. It keeps happening, man. When these teams lose these win streaks, but especially the teams that have lost these deep undefeated runs, they're essentially losing the same game twice. And I think that might be what happens with Arizona here. I'm not necessarily saying they're going to lose the game, but I like Texas Tech to cover this number. That was a big game for Arizona, too, at Kansas. Huge emotional game for both teams. Now they're playing another emotional game, whereas Texas Tech had a very easy effort game in their game against Colorado. It's Texas Tech or pass for me in this one. The money looks like it's kind of coming in on Arizona, but I don't agree with it. Arizona down from 9.5 to 9. 54% of tickets, 78% of the cash coming in on Arizona. I don't agree with the money there in Arizona. I would take the points with Texas Tech. You get 9.5. I mean, a team losing their undefeated status that late into the season, it's the only move fading them. Alexander, what's up, man? You're on Clemson plus the points. It makes sense from the perspective that it's probably going to be a lower scoring game or points are at a premium, but I like Duke in that game. I talked about it early, and it was the first game that I talked about. You can go back and see my analysis on it, but it's a huge revenge game for Duke, in my opinion, because Clemson was the only team in the ACC that beat them last year, and Duke didn't get revenge on them or anything because they only played once. So I think Duke has had this game circled all year. So I like Duke in that game slightly. Let me see. ESPNU at 6:30 p.m. Harvard and Yale, kid. It's Yale at Harvard this time. Both teams played last night. The Ivy does a lot of these back-to-back Friday, Saturday games. Yale had an easier time beating Dartmouth last night, and they're playing a third straight road game, including going out of Ivy territory to play Howard. So the spot, I think, sets up a little bit more iffy for Yale. However, this is a road revenge spot for Yale because they lost at home to Harvard already. So Yale probably does have this game circled. However, Harvard is going to show up for this game too, and Harvard did not play well last night. They barely got by Brown last night as a big favorite, 7.5-point favorite. So I think the setup in this game actually is better for Harvard. So I actually don't dislike Harvard in this game, man. Yes, I know Yale has the road revenge motive here, but based on how the spot sets up, based on what these teams did last night, and Yale with the travel as well, I kind of lean to Harvard plus the points here. Yale's a 5-point favorite there. Low total in the high 130s. It'll be an interesting one, man, but I probably slightly lean towards taking it with Harvard. Yeah, Harvard. Harvard Yard. 6:30 p.m. ESPN2, we have the basketball edition of the Egg Bowl, I think is what this is, the Battle of Mississippi. It is 2.0 because these teams played already, and the road team actually won. Mississippi State lost at home to Ole Miss by 1 point in the earlier game, so I think for that reason you might see Mississippi State show up with more effort this time because they're going to be the avenging road underdog here. I think in both cases, the home team was favored by about 3.5. So these teams are pretty evenly matched according to the odds makers. Mississippi State is coming into this game off of a game against Tennessee that wasn't exactly that close. They've lost 3 games in a row, so I do expect them to show up here. I think Ole Miss will show up as well. They've lost a ton of games in a row, 6 games in a row, whatever that is. Getting blown out by Alabama on their home floor in the last game. They're staying at home now, so the spot actually might be slightly better for Ole Miss here. They dropped from 4 to 3.5, 75% of tickets, 95% of the cash on Ole Miss. The money looks like it's on Ole Miss. I mean, even though the spot is slightly better for Ole Miss based on what these teams did in the last game, I kind of lean towards Mississippi State in the avenging road dog angle, but that game is very, very hard for me to predict, man. I got nothing on that game, really. All right. UC Santa Barbara and Cal Poly. Cal Poly, they just beat UC Irvine, man. That was a huge win for Cal Poly. UC Irvine is one of the best teams in this conference in the Big West. It was only a 5.5-point upset, but still, it just seems like it's a big game, you know, when you beat one of the top teams in the conference. And Cal Poly does have top team in the Big West, Hawaii, on deck. They have to travel to Hawaii, so There is the possibility they might overlook UC Santa Barbara here, but UC Santa Barbara is near the top of the conference as well. And UC Santa Barbara totally embarrassed Cal Poly by 40 points at UC Santa Barbara. So I don't think they could possibly overlook them here in this game, but it's still not a great spot because they're coming off a big win in the prior game. And for UC Santa Barbara, they're coming off an easier win at UC Riverside, where they didn't do that well. They were coming off a win over UC Irvine in the prior game. They might not take Cal Poly seriously because they annihilated them in the last game, but I don't know, man. UC Santa Barbara dropped from 6 to 3.5. I might lean towards laying the points in that one, man, even though it looks like the money initially did come in taking the points in that one. I don't like these teams coming up big games, man. That's just the way that it is. Even if that is another big game. Getting close to the end, sort of. 8 p.m. Peacock, Big East, Georgetown at number 6, UConn. KenPom does have UConn at 8th, so the rankings makers are kind of getting them right now. Georgetown, they're coming off a pretty big performance at home against Villanova. They lost by 7. Played pretty well in that game, so Georgetown's going to have to play 2 big games in a row now, which might be difficult for them, and that ended a win streak for them. So I talk about it. When a team loses a win streak, they can be hung over into the next game for that reason. Now, they shouldn't overlook UConn, but Georgetown is having to play 2 big games in a row. This game is in Storrs, Connecticut this time, so it's UConn's rowdy on-campus crowd that's going to be at this game, the on-campus venue. So it'll be a rowdier crowd probably. UConn's coming up the easier performance against Butler. They failed to cover. I was correct about Butler in that one. Did not add it to my card. It was close. Butler only covered by like 1.5 points, 2 points, whatever it was there. However, I think UConn will show up, not just because that game wasn't that great for them against Butler, but look at what UConn did the first time they played Georgetown. They barely got by them at Georgetown. UConn were 11.5-point road favorites and only won by 2. So UConn might take Georgetown seriously because Georgetown played them really, really close earlier in the season, gave them a huge game. So I like UConn in this game, man. That's the way that I would have to lean in this one. Let me see here. UConn's a 16.5-point favorite. 89% of tickets, 96% of the cash on UConn. There'll be a public side. Looks like maybe some of the money's coming in on them too. I know it's difficult to lay a huge amount of points there. I mean, I'm not adding it to my card or anything. With a low total, UConn plays slow. Total in the 130s, but I would have to lay it if I was going to play it. A Peacock, yeah. All right. Fox on Fox at 8 p.m. We have a non-conference game. A couple of those today. Like I said, we have 3 non-conference games today that all get TV spots. Number 15, Virginia at Ohio State. This is a pretty interesting one. I've been talking about how I don't totally buy Virginia at this 21-3 record, although looking at KenPom, he's got them, where does he have them? At 20th, so he's got them a little bit worse than what the rankings makers are telling you, where they have them at 15th. Virginia's played a pretty weak schedule, man, and that's the problem I have with Virginia. But coming into this game, they're coming off almost getting upset by Florida State. That was a bad performance from Virginia, so they might show up better in this game after a bad game like that. And they don't have a big game on deck against Georgia Tech, so Virginia might show up. This game is in Nashville, by the way. It's the Nashville Hoops Showdown. So I don't know if the venue is better for one team or the other. I mean, it might be a little bit closer to Columbus, is it? I don't know. Probably it is. Ohio State coming into this one off of beating USC, not a big deal there. I think they'll show up for this game as well. Usually I like teams that are coming off a scare like Virginia is here, but Ohio State, they're on the bubble right now, man. In my most recent bracketology, which I put out on Thursday, I have Ohio State outside of the tournament now, I think. So bad times for Ohio State right now. They're going to need a win like this to try to pad their tournament resume, man. So I think Ohio State might actually give you more of an effort in this game for that reason, and they are an underdog here, and the money seems to be very much indicating on Ohio State. Virginia's a 4.5-point favorite, 50-50 on the tickets, 79% of the cash on Ohio State. I guess I will agree with it, but I Still could see Virginia showing up in that game, man, after a scare that they just got. But it also looks too easy to lay 4.5 with a team like Virginia that's ranked and that has a record like that. So there is that too. And it's one of the spotlight games, so the public might have money on that one. CBS Sports at 8, Memphis at Utah State. Very strange game here. Memphis having to go to Utah State, kind of a weird travel spot for them. Memphis did just lose at North Texas, which I thought they might. I thought they might be looking ahead to this game, but even if Memphis shows up, I don't know, man. It's going to be a difficult venue for them to have to go to. Utah State, they're coming off an easy win over Fresno, staying at home. I believe this game is at Utah State. It is. So it's a true road game for Memphis here. Utah State does have Boise on deck, so there is the possibility they're looking ahead to that. But, again, very weird travel spot for Memphis here. Utah State laying 13.5, 75% of tickets, 96% of the cash on Memphis. Based on what these teams did in the last game, Memphis coming off kind of an ugly loss. Utah State, kind of looking ahead maybe to Boise. I guess I would slightly lean towards taking the points with Memphis, but I really don't love it, man. So it's a stay away for me for sure. All right, let's keep going here. What else we got here? I know I forgot to mention Oral Roberts in their last game, but it was just hilarious that they were like a 6-point favorite, even though they were a winless team. Of course, they were playing UMKC, and Oral Roberts finally got their first. They're a winless team in conference, I should say. Oral Roberts finally got their first conference win, beating the even worse UMKC, Kansas City. But I got nothing to really say about that game otherwise. Some of these games I just don't have much. Let me see. I only have one other additional lean here. Oh, no, I don't have any. I already talked about the rest of them. I have one more play somewhere in here, and that's it, man. I'm going to talk about the TV games. Don't know if there are any other games that are that interesting here. Auburn is at number 21, Arkansas at 8:30 p.m. on ESPN. Auburn coming into this one off a loss to Vandy. I know Auburn lost as a home favorite, and a lot of times I like teams that lose as a home favorite to bounce back, but I don't know, man, because Vandy's a good team, a ranked team. That was a pretty big game for Auburn. So they're playing a couple of big games in a row here. Might be difficult for them, whereas Arkansas is coming off beating LSU. Easier game, easier win for them. I know they do have Alabama on deck, but I don't know, man. And then the other thing about Arkansas is they actually lost ugly at Auburn earlier this year. Arkansas actually lost by 22 points at Auburn earlier this year. So there's a revenge motive here for Arkansas. I don't think they're going to overlook Auburn for that reason, so I would have to lean to Arkansas in this game. Arkansas has gone up from 6 to 8.5, though, so you're losing some value on that through that key-ish number of 7 when teams stop potentially fouling for the 3-possession threshold. 79% of the cash and tickets on Arkansas. I would lay it, even though they're going to be a public side. That's the way I would lean in that game. ESPNU at 8:30 has Marshall at Georgia Southern in the Sun Belt. It's not exactly the most enticing game. Georgia Southern was up near the top of the standings earlier this season, but they're not a very good team. Marshall is coming off barely getting by Old Dominion. That was not a good performance from Marshall. Old Dominion's not very good. So Marshall might show up with a better performance here, but they got South Alabama and App State on deck, and those are two big games with South Alabama 2 days from now. So they have 2 of the top teams in the conference on deck, so that's the problem. They might be looking ahead. These 2 teams haven't played yet this year. They do play at the end of the season. Georgia Southern is coming off 3 straight losses here. They got blown out at home by App State. So I think the spot might actually be a little bit better for Georgia Southern just because of the look-ahead spot that Marshall is in. Marshall dropped from 3 to 2.5. I guess I would probably lean towards taking the points with Georgia Southern, but don't have a great opinion on that one. South Carolina at Alabama on the SEC network at 8:30 p.m. South Carolina on a big losing streak, 5 losses in a row. They got blown out by Missouri at home in their last game. Likely they're going to try to show up for a game because, you're in a rut like South Carolina. You're going to try to show up and save yourself some embarrassment, man. Try to put in a good performance against a good team. Alabama, they're coming into this off of 3 straight wins, but their last win was it was, I don't want to say unimpressive, but it was against a pretty bad Ole Miss team. It was a road win. It's pretty impressive when you beat anybody really on the road by 19, any conference foe like that. So they are coming off of that, and then they do have Arkansas on deck. So there is a potential they overlook South Carolina here because they're a bad team. The teams haven't played this season. This might be the only time they play. I would probably lean towards taking the points with South Carolina. No real strong opinion at all for me on that game, though. Alabama's up from 16.5 to 17.5. 92% of the tickets and 98% of the cash on Alabama, so some of the money on them. But they look like they're going to be a public side. I would probably fade them. All right, next up, my final play of the day. And I got to get the Instagram videos on. Unfortunately, I forgot to get the Instagram video out yesterday. I just got busy, so people got to watch my show, man, or just follow me on Twitter. We're gonna be on the Texas money line here. I found it at just straight up a -110 pick'em price. They're about a -1 favorite at some spots in this one, but I think you can find a good money line on this. So we're going Texas money line at Missouri here. I don't like the spot for Missouri, first of all. Missouri, they've won 3 games in a row, but they just pulled off a road upset at Texas A&M. Still a big deal beating Texas A&M because they were near the top of the SEC for so long. Missouri's not that good. They were 7.5-point underdogs in that game. That was a pretty nice upset for Missouri here, man. And what was a tight game, tightly contested game. Missouri did massively out-rebound Texas A&M. Texas A&M is not the same Texas A&M team that they were the last couple of seasons. They're not this slow-down, ugly offensive team. And Texas A&M scores a lot and doesn't play defense now, and they play fast, Bucky ball, if you will, with Bucky McMillan there, whatever their coach's name is. But anyway, Missouri is coming off the big upset. Now they're back at home, but up next, they got Vandy, man, and then Arkansas, and then Tennessee. So there's the possibility they overlook Texas because Texas is middle of the pack in the conference. And I think Texas is a very under-the-radar team. As I've kept saying, we'll look at KenPom in a minute. Texas is one of the more undervalued teams in the entire country, man, but they're easy to overlook. These teams did not play each other this year yet. I think this is the only time they play. Looking at what Missouri's done at home this year, they really have not been that impressive, to be honest. They beat Mississippi State by 5, Oklahoma by 1, Auburn by 10. That's an all right win. They did beat Florida at home. That was their best conference home win. But other than that, it's not like they've been great at home. As far as Texas is concerned, Texas comes into this game off of beating Ole Miss. They got 3 wins in a row. They got momentum. This game's not surrounded by anything, really. I think they'll show up, even though, yes, it is kind of a weird travel spot for Texas, a single road game there. But Texas is not exactly unused to playing in Missouri. I mean, these teams played each other when they were in the Big 12 and whatever. So I think it's fine, but also I think Missouri is an overrated team, man. Missouri is up to 1.5 now. Actually, you can probably get Texas at a plus the points now. So, yeah. If you're getting Texas plus 1.5, do that, obviously. I might I'll score it as that if that's what the line is now. 62% of tickets, 92% of the cash on Texas. Looks like the actual money is coming in on the Texas side. And I think it's also kind of a misleading line here. Like, it's basically a pick-the-winner price, but people are going to see Missouri as the somewhat better record, and they're at home. It looks really easy to play Missouri, but I'm telling you that's not the way to do it. KenPom has Texas 34th in the country, and he has them as a bottom 20 team in luck. They're top 10 in offense. They're not a very good defensive team, so yeah, that is a concern. They have kind of a weird profile where they play slow, but they don't play good defense. But they're an undervalued commodity, man. They face a difficult schedule, and again, KenPom is telling you they're a lot better than their record looks. They're very unlucky, according to KenPom. They're almost 20 ranking spots higher than Missouri. And Missouri, their defense is nothing to write home about either. So it's not like we have to worry that much about Texas having a weak defense because Missouri's is not significantly better. Texas has a significantly better offense, though. So Texas' offense is where the biggest gap is between these two teams. Missouri is very lucky, too, at 28th in the country. So KenPom is telling you they've massively overperformed. Their schedule's been a bit weaker than Texas's has as well, so they're a little bit less battle-tested. And Missouri, they're going to try to play fast. Texas is going to try to play slow, but sometimes it is easier to slow the game down. And maybe Texas will be able to do that in this one. Total's at 150.5. I think the odds makers kind of just don't know which way it's going to go, but we're going to go with Texas here, man. I think we're getting value on Texas. I think we can get 1.5 on this now, like I said. But yeah, it's kind of a numbers play, but also kind of a spot play, where I think Missouri's in a sandwich spot. But also, I think the numbers are indicating, like, Texas is just an undervalued team right now, man. So I like how that sets up. Texas will be my final play. Big Ten Network at 9 p.m., Minnesota at Washington. Both of these teams are in bad spots. Both of these teams are in good spots, Minnesota just lost at home as a big favorite to Maryland. That's a bad loss. Minnesota were double-digit favorites in that game. You know, I talk about when a double-digit favorite loses, I like them to refocus in the next game. However, having to go out to the West Coast to an unfamiliar venue, go play in Seattle, that's not really that easy of a thing to do for Minnesota. And they're getting a Washington team that is also coming off a loss as a home favorite. They were double-digit favorites in their game against Penn State, and they lost the game. And they're staying at home, so I think they should be focused as well. So it's a spot where I think both teams should be focused, but I think Washington sets up a little bit better just because of the unfamiliarity of the venue for Minnesota and the travel spot. I'll lean to Washington, but I think both teams set up to bounce back in this one. Washington's a 5.5-point favorite, 83% of tickets, 98% of the cash on Washington. Maybe an under worth considering in that one. I mean, both teams play kind of ugly. It's the total's low in the 130s. Usually you want to go under when the total's low because the odds makers are kind of telling you it's going to be an ugly game. And both teams might show up focused, which usually kind of shows on the defensive end because both teams just had bad losses. So that's kind of what I'm thinking in that game. But yeah, 83% of tickets, 98% of the cash on Washington. So the money does seem to be indicating on Washington. I don't disagree, but I think both teams are in good spots there. Texas brisket, yeah, but that's the sandwich spot that Missouri is in is not a Texas sandwich. They're playing Vandy next, so I don't know what type of sandwich they're in there. I don't know, because it's half Texas, half Nashville in that one. Or not Nashville. Where's Vandy? I forget where Vandy is. It's half Texas, half Tennessee. Montana State at Montana should be a pretty good game on the late slate here. It's not going to be televised, though. It's going to be on ESPN+. Montana coming off losing to Eastern Washington at home. Not a good game for Montana. So they were Montana State, lost at home to Eastern Washington. I know Eastern Washington is not as bad as their record looks, but I think Montana State probably was looking ahead to Montana. Montana State did already win the first game at home against Montana. This is the second meeting. They beat Montana by 9 at home. So there is, I guess, a little bit of a road revenge motive for Montana here. I think both teams are going to show up, though. Montana State obviously was looking ahead, had that kind of ugly loss against Eastern Washington. Montana did win against Idaho, and I think they actually covered barely. I thought they might not cover in that one. But they should be focused as well coming into this game against Montana State. Montana's actually a 2-point favorite here, so Montana State being listed as the better team. You know, I know it's a little bit of revenge for Montana here, but I don't know. I kind of lean to Montana State because the odds makers are telling you they're the better team here. And they're coming off the uglier loss, or they're coming off the uglier game in their most recent game. That loss is a favorite, whereas Montana did actually win and cover in there. So those are my thoughts on that. Cal Baptist at Utah Tech. Utah Tech is coming off a nice upset win against Utah Valley. So pretty big win for Utah Tech. I think they probably consider themselves to be a little brother against Utah Valley at this point in Utah. They were 9.5-point underdogs and won, and I think Utah Valley is still the best team in this conference. So Utah Tech's coming up that big game. Now they're facing the team that is atop the conference now, Cal Baptist, and it is a double revenge spot. It's a third meeting, which is only happening in the WAC, which is whack because there are only 7 teams in here now. Utah Tech did lose both meetings already against Cal Baptist, both on the road by 12 and by 9. So you got to think they should show up here. But the problem is it could be a major letdown spot off of beating Utah Valley. So I can't do it, man. I can't do either thing with Utah Tech. I can't fade them in the letdown spot because Cal Baptist might overlook them after beating them twice. But I can't really do it. I just can't do anything with the game, man. Cal Baptist is on a huge win streak. They've won like 9 games in a row, but they have a big game on deck against Utah Valley, so they might overlook Utah Tech for that reason too. So the spot is not good for Cal Baptist here. They're up from 2 to 3 here, and the money looks like it is kind of coming in on Cal Baptist right now. I kind of don't really agree with it because it is double revenge for Utah Tech. I know it's a huge letdown spot for Utah Tech too, but Cal Baptist does have the look ahead as well. I don't know, man. Although sometimes the game that you just played is more indicative of what's going to happen, and Cal Baptist did just have an easy win over Southern Utah, who's maybe the worst team in the conference. I don't know. It's a game that I am not going to touch, obviously. So I don't know. I go back and forth on that game quite a bit. I don't really want to even give out an opinion on it because it's such a close call in that game. CBS Sports at 10 p.m. We're getting into the degenerate hours. No 11 p.m. or midnight games tonight, though. No Hawaii degenerate special because I think Hawaii is in California right now. Nevada at San Diego State is this game. It's a good Mountain West game, man. Nevada coming into this game of beating Fresno. No big deal there. These two teams already did play, and Nevada lost at home to San Diego State, so it is a road revenge spot for Nevada coming into this one. I think they were probably a small favorite in that game. I can look real quick. Where's that game at? Let me see. Yeah, Nevada was a 1.5 point favorite there, but yeah, it should be road revenge for them. But San Diego State, it sets up okay for them because they're just coming off a win over Air Force, but they did beat Air Force by 34 points. So I guess it was on the road, so I guess that's kind of satisfying. San Diego State does have a revenge game against Grand Canyon on deck, though. So maybe they consider that to be a little bit of a bigger game, even though Nevada is right behind them in the standings. All of that, being said, I would lean to Nevada in this one, but San Diego State's an 8-point favorite and getting the money, it looks like. 67% of tickets, 96% of the cash on them. I think the line has moved maybe a little bit too much in their direction, though. I mean, if Nevada was favored at home, you'd expect San Diego State to maybe be like a 6-point favorite here. So I don't know. I think the line, maybe some of the move was warranted because you do have to adjust the power ratings based on, based on results. Like, you just don't want to over adjust, but maybe this has been a little bit of an over adjustment. And San Diego State likes to play, these kind of low scoring defensive battles. So, although they actually play a faster tempo, they're not a good offensive team. They play defense mostly. So, could be one of those games. The low total in the 140s, low 140s. So taking the points kind of makes sense for that reason too. I lean to Nevada in that one. All right, and then we have on ESPN, huge game between number 12 Gonzaga and Santa Clara at Santa Clara. Santa Clara is actually ahead of Gonzaga in the standings, so maybe Gonzaga will be playing with a chip on their shoulder here because Gonzaga is always the top team in this conference pretty much, and they don't want to surrender that, so it's probably like, who the hell is Santa Clara? It's not even St. Mary's, who's usually the main competition here, but Santa Clara is having an excellent season, and they are legit, man. They're good. KenPom has them in like the top 40 or so teams in the country. They're definitely legit. But Gonzaga might, just have a little chip on their shoulder. Santa Clara wants to prove themselves, no doubt about it. They've already beaten St. Mary's. They would definitely love to beat both St. Mary's and Gonzaga in the course of one season. That would be awesome for them. But I don't think Gonzaga is going to overlook this game either, man. I think they're basically like, who the hell is this team? That's not even St. Mary's. It's ahead of us in the standings now. Gonzaga had that blip against Portland State, coming off the big win over St. Mary's. They bounced back nicely with 2 blowout wins. They're coming into this game with momentum, although it is a third road game in 4 games for them. Santa Clara coming into this off of beating Seattle at home, so they're staying at home. Sets up fine for them too, but I don't know, man. The money is all coming in on Santa Clara, though. Gonzaga's up from the 3.5 point favorite to a 4.5 point favorite. 54% of the tickets on Gonzaga, 80% of the cash on Santa Clara, though. I mean, I can't disagree with a market read that looks that strong, so it is strongly indicating on Santa Clara. I guess I'll agree with taking the points there in that one. Gonzaga not quite as good as they were, say last year, where they were an unbelievably underrated 8 seed. They were an 8 seed in the tournament last year, even though they were the 10th best team in the country, according to KenPom, although they're actually the 10th best team again right now. Santa Clara 38th. Santa Clara is legit, man. Gonzaga is still the better team. Significantly better on defense, Gonzaga is, than Santa Clara. So that's the one big edge that Gonzaga has. But Gonzaga's pretty lucky, according to KenPom, at 35th in luck, whereas Santa Clara is more of a mid-tier luck team. So we'll see. I would like to see Santa Clara make the tournament, man. It would be crazy to see a team that's not Gonzaga or St. Mary's somehow getting into the tournament. Gonzaga's going to get into the tournament anyway. Santa Clara has an at-large case, though. And then St. Mary's is playing at Pacific in the other 10:30 p.m. game on ESPN2. St. Mary's coming off of beating Pepperdine at home. No big deal there. These teams haven't played each other this year. I don't think this is the only matchup. But Pacific has been pretty sneaky competitive this year, man. They've been not a bad team. I think they might actually be the 5th best team in this conference this year behind the obvious 4 that I've been talking about. They might be better than San Francisco now. Pacific is coming off kind of a lackluster game where they barely beat Loyola Marymount, who's having a bad season. Pacific only won by 6. I don't know how much they were favored by in this game. 5.5, so they actually technically covered, but wasn't a great performance. And then they're staying at home. Maybe they were looking ahead to St. Mary's here. I would lean to Pacific in this game. St. Mary's is an 8.5-point road favorite. You know they play these slow games. Laying points on the road, not really something I'd want to do with them. Totals low in the 130s. 83% of tickets, 95% of the cash on St. Mary's. So the money is saying St. Mary's, but I disagree. And that's going to do it, man. That's the whole rundown today. So, yeah, hopefully we get some wins today. That's going to do it one more time. My plays are Iowa State minus the points. 6.5 or 7 on that. Charleston Southern plus the points. I think 3.5. You might be able to find a 4 out there. Iowa plus 2, 2.5. Mostly 2, some 2.5s out there. And Texas I give it out on the money line here, but really, like I said, I think they're actually an underdog now at like 1.5. So better for us. You can get them as a dog. That's going to do it. Thanks to everybody for hanging out. I know I went a little bit earlier because I want to get this done earlier, man, because I know it's going to be a 3-hour show, college basketball. So at least we don't have NBA or NHL to worry about here. But enjoy, the NBA all-star garbage as well. Only the 3-point contest is really interesting to me at this point. But I don't have a good read on that one either, though. So I gave out my opinion on that mostly yesterday. If you go back and watch that, that's going to do it. Learn to Tone on Twitter. You can subscribe to me there if you want to throw me some support. You get some bonus uke posts there as well. I've only done one so far, though. Learn to Toad on Instagram as well. I'll put out the short form version of these plays as well over there. Like, subscribe to the channel here, man. Give me likes, give me subscriptions. Let's boost this thing up. Want to blow this thing up somehow, man. I think I go into the most detail for any handicapping show, so at least there's that. People seem to not want to listen to me, but let's boost this thing up somehow. Give me, replies as well on here. That all helps. Listening on audio helps. Reviewing on audio helps. Spotify and Apple. Covered in Uke is my Uke channel on YouTube. I think I have that pretty much up to date now. I did a new tribute cover for James Vanderbeek. R.I.P., man. Didn't even realize he had cancer, man. Seemed like a good dude. He's, a father. Stays with his wife. Raises his kids, Vanderbeek, he's probably like one of the few Hollywood personas not on the Epstein list and whatever, like not one of those guys, which is probably why he never got, any like real great gigs there. But I covered the Dawson's Creek theme song, Paula Cole, so there you go. You can check that out. Cole. Shout out to Cole as well. Yes, correct. Yes, he's I don't know what I want to, I don't know. He's continuing his bloodline, yes. Anyway, and so is Cole, by the way. What else was I about to say? Yeah, covered in Uke, yes, patreon.com/learntotode. You get some bonus Uke stuff there. That's pretty much up to date now. I think it's completely up to date, actually. Except for, I did a Beatles cover yesterday, too, that was a request from I forget who it was, from somebody. So that's up there on Twitter, but nowhere else yet. That'll be up soon somewhere, or not somewhere, but on YouTube and on the Patreon feed. But yes, Patreon, or if you just want to throw me some support there, that helps me as well. And then what else we got? Because I need to live too, man. We'll see what happens when my money finally frees up, which is happening at the end of the month. So we'll see if I go full-time professional bettor, which sounds badass, man, if I want to do that full-time. And then what else we got? Oh, of course, Losercast will be back on Tuesday. That's going to do it, man. Losercast Tuesday night, the new comedy podcast. I appreciate it, guys. Long show, but we're done at a decent time here. Peace.